Welcome into a very special edition of the Gurus, Theo, Mike, and X. We've been waiting on this for a few weeks here. This is our special show reviewing Gilmore Girls Season 1. Before we begin, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us across all our networks on TikTok, on Instagram, here on YouTube, and over on Spotify. Now, if you're at home, and you're looking at three guys here with prominently sports backgrounds, and you're wondering, why are these three reviewing Gilmore Girls? That's kind of the entire point of why we're doing this. We thought it'd be a fun idea. We were pitched, why don't you guys do some show reviews of shows that you wouldn't traditionally watch? And naturally, we thought of doing some legacy shows like The Sopranos or The Wire, but they thought it would be better if we did something like a Gilmore Girls. And they saw the guy's perspective of Gilmore Girls. So before we begin, Mike, I want you to start us off here. When I pitched this concept to you, you were pretty all in, but you were definitely taken back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it is a fish out of water experience because it's not something I would ever pick up on my own and just be like, "Hey, Gilmore Girls, let me start this adventure." It's not something I would typically ever do. I even when my mom found out we were watching, she was like, "Why are you watching Gilmore Girls?" Like she's was like, of all the people I would imagine watching, and not you're not the first person that come to mind. So that's why it really is a fish out of water experience. But I kind of like it for that reason. It's something that I'm not like an expert in these kinds of shows. So let me just kind of spew my opinions on something I really know nothing about. I'm not an expert in it. So, we do all these Survivor talks, we do the sports talks, but this is something that's completely different. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Theo, this is something that, we've circled around for a little while. We talked about doing similar things, but you also had a fun reaction when I pitched this to you.
Yeah, I think we landed on a good one because when all the women in my life, when I've told them we're doing this, they get so excited. So I think a lot of pressure on us. We got to deliver. We got to make this entertaining, give some interesting perspective. But it's definitely I'm glad we did this. I actually had a good time watching all 21 episodes of Gilmore Girls season.
Also had a good time, which I think is what's important. This is the only sports reference we will make on this entire podcast. It does feel like a final. Feels like our Super Bowl. It feels like the World Cup final. It feels something akin to a big deal for us because, again, a lot of pressure. Same with the woman in my life. My girlfriend's a huge fan of this franchise, the reason I got this idea in the first place. So, I think we can nail this. I think we can do it. So let's begin. Why not? So this show came out Thursday, October 5th, 2000 on the WB. And, it seemed like for the time, it wasn't super successful. They were averaging about 3 to 4 million viewers per episode, which at that time, with television being so dominant of a medium, wasn't super duper big, but obviously the show's gained a cult following from its appearance on Netflix and just being in the culture over time. So the way we're going to do this here is we're going to explore what we liked, what we didn't like, and eventually give a final assessment. But before we do that, we're going to run through the major storylines, give a very brief background leading into it, and then we'll give our analysis in between. So presumably, if you're watching this, you've seen Gilmore Girls, but just to refresh, it's about Lorelai and Rory Gilmore navigating life in Stars Hollow, Connecticut, which, by the way, guys, not a real town. I looked it up.
I
It's
did too.
based on a few different towns over in Connecticut. They host a festival now and again. It's about 2 hours away from me. When you look it up, it does look like a typical New England town that I'm used to. You could honestly plop this in between Connecticut, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. Yeah, it seems reasonable enough to me. And the show itself is about the relationships both Lorelai and Rory foster in and around this small community. So, starting the show, we get introduced to Rory, who's a brilliant student and wants to further her education. She applies and gets admitted to Chilton, which is a premium New England private school. Again, very stereotypical for my area. This is something that I've seen before. The uniforms, the snottiness. This is pretty on brand, in my opinion. Lorelai, her single mother, who manages an inn, can't afford the tuition, so she has to beg her parents, whom she doesn't have a great relationship, and Emily and Richard to help with the payments. Now, the early storyline here is Emily agrees to these conditions if Lorelai and Rory come to a weekly Friday dinner, which is a big part of season one here because Emily and Richard want to get back in to Rory and Lorelai's lives. So, Mike, early on, we're introduced to this dynamic between Rory and Lorelai, and then Rory, Lorelai, Emily, Richard. Just take me through your first thoughts here about being introduced to all these characters.
I like these characters honestly more than most of the side characters in the show. Obviously, Lorelai sticks out at me first because really this whole storyline is about her relationship with her parents and obviously having Rory at such a young age. She had her, I believe, 16, right? Uh, so that was kind of like where her and her parents got a little bit off center is what we're supposed to believe. But obviously the stipulation here that Emily agrees to is that she wants to be more in Rory's life, obviously her granddaughter, as well as Richard. So that's why they agree to it. But you can kind of tell early on that that Lorelai and Emily had this tiff going on. Like Lorelai, every time she's about to bring something to Emily's attention, she knows there might be something underneath that she might be wanting in return. So she tries to tread a little bit lightly. I think their whole dialogue is really fascinating. And obviously, her parents live in Hartford, which is actually a real place. So Star Isle, not a real place. Hartford is a real place. And from what I've gathered, I believe it's like 30 minutes ish, 45 minutes away from Stars Hollow. So it's not like it's not like unreasonable, far to go out. But I thought the Friday dinners were really an interesting wrinkle. But obviously, this is all because she needs to pay to get into Chilton, and obviously her parents are doing pretty well.
Yeah, I would say the one thing about Gilmore Girls is there's a lot of plot lines. Some of them I'm super into, and some of them I'm not. Anytime we get like some combination of Lorelai and Rory and some of the grandparents, like I think it was always great. I was always fascinated. I did think it was a weird thing to me. An elite private school like that, the way it went with Rory, where she like tested in and got in the middle of the year. I thought it made for good TV. Not sure how realistic that is. I feel like usually you would start at the beginning of the year, but they like threw her in there so she would kind of like get in mid-year, have to like struggle a little bit. Maybe there would like already be social dynamics that she would have to fit into. So I get why they did that. But yeah, I thought that was a little bit interesting. But yeah, these are all plot lines that I'm very into.
So funny enough, you mentioned that because, as I mentioned, I am near some schools that resemble a Chilton. A few people I know that went to those, usually sports related. Oftentimes, if they did go in the middle of the year, they would have to go a grade below. That's usually how it went. So if they were in 10th grade, they'd have to go to ninth again. But I did enjoy that. I think we'll get into it here, how she has to fit into Chilton. I thought that was pretty important. Where Rory, while at Chilton, she's just struggling to manage both fitting in and the workload as a whole. We get introduced to this clique of Paris, Louise, and Madeline, who, like, I guess they're supposed to be the cool crowd, but then Paris isn't that cool amongst the three of
We
them.
find out that later, yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the weird parts of the season that I was trying to nail down. And then, of course, Tristan, who takes a liking to her, calls her Mary all the time, which is a play on Virgin Mary, which is just supposed to be like a goody two shoes as far as like cute insults go. That's one of the weirder ones I've ever heard, but teach your own, different time. So Rory at Chilton here, a lot to dive into, but early on, it's pretty evident that they want to make us see her commitment to her education, Mike.
Yeah, when I first saw the first few scenes we get at Chilton, obviously they are painting the picture for us that Paris is like the antagonist, like the mean girl. The first couple of days of the classes, she's kind of picking on Rory a little bit, like you'll never be as good as me. You won't be in the school paper, like all those other things. It's like little jabs, like okay, they're setting us up for like a Paris versus Rory dynamic here, and then obviously Tristan. We don't get much from Tristan for the first few episodes other than just him calling her Mary. Like, that's really all we have from him. So it's another one of those things where he's kind of like calling her a goody two-shoes. Like, she won't do anything wrong, type of those things. So just stereotypical people are picking on her. But overall, like, I thought that it's a stark difference from going to the school that you were going at with her friend Lane and the new kid that just moved there, Dean, to now going into a completely it's a private school in Chilton. It's one of those higher ups things. So it's going to be it's tough to kind of transition, but you can tell that Rory's super smart and we'll be able to transition pretty easily. But it's just those first few days and those first few weeks that we get in those first few episodes of her kind of having to get acclimated to these kind of like stereotypical mean girls which is that clique with Paris, Lewis, and Madeline, and then obviously with Tristan there as well.
Yeah, I think the smaller private schools, like, they have less kids, so I think you get less archetypes, so people fit into different spots. So that's why I think, like, these characters maybe in one of those, like, 80s, 90s movies at, like, a big public school would be more like fringe characters, but here they're like the popular kids. But I'm all in on Paris here. I kind of love the mean girl like dynamic. I feel like we don't see much in new media, but just like the high school girl that's just so mean to someone for kind of no reason.
No reason,
I
yeah.
love. I Tristan I just find to be so annoying. I get that's like kind of the point. They're kind of conveying it in a way that he's annoying, but all the girls like him, and I'm just like, he's too insufferable. Like, I get he's kind of a good-looking guy, but like, how is
I was
Rory ever going to show him the light of day?
I was gonna get to that. They seem like total polar opposites. I don't even like sometimes opposites attract, but this one to me, I just felt like Tristan came off as like no chance right away. I'm like, what is he going for here? What's he aiming? Like, what's his angle? At first, I thought maybe it was like him and Paris could have something, but obviously we find out later it's not really in the cards. But it just seems like he's like the stereotypical like he's supposed to be cool. He's supposed to be like this one that everyone fawns over, but I don't know. I just wasn't personally seeing it. And obviously, I don't think Rory was either. So it wasn't like even like a little bit of interest at first. Like it just felt like that was one that was just shut down immediately because he was just being kind of annoying in the first like 7 or 8 episodes. It's just him kind of playing this. It's like a role play with him and Rory trying to. I don't know. This what the approach was, but it did kind of come off as a little bit insufferable.
I know it worries me though, because the amount he's been on our screen, I feel like they're building up some type of love connection with them in future seasons, which I'm gonna hate whenever that comes.
Right.
I think my issue with Tristan is this kind of archetype of the guy making fun of the girl because he likes her is for like middle schoolers.
It's great.
It doesn't really translate for me for high school. And I understand what they're going for, but it's so insufferable and it's so many times. Like it crosses the line of like he has a crush on her to like he's a weird stalker, annoying man. Like that's where you kind of lose me here.
He was doing the thing where I think he was with Summer at one point, and they're like making out right in front of Rory's locker. I'm like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing now. Like he's just kind of like right in her face. Like I'm like, does he like her, or does he just want to be like the douche at school? I don't say. I was getting a little bit confused at first, but I guess that's what Tristan's character is in season 1.
Yeah, I'd like a girl's perspective. Like, is he attractive enough to get away with this behavior? Because to me, he's
like
not.
Undoubtedly an attractive guy. I just don't think he has no character developments throughout the season besides the fact, like, oh, he might have a tough home life, so therefore he's a douchebag. And I think they try to do the same thing with Paris. But with Paris, it makes a lot more sense because Paris does have these moments of being heartwarming and caring, and then she kind of snaps back out of it. But you understand that perspective from Paris a bit more because, like, her parents are going through divorce at this time, and Rory is kind of infringing upon her status at school. I don't get that with Tristan. Like, what is his arc supposed to be? He's just annoying the entire time. We get some more humane moments of him, but they kind of fall flat for me, to be totally honest, because they're too far and few between.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Like for season 1, and maybe his character development is way better in future seasons. That very well could be the case. But at least with Paris, we got a little bit of a backstory about like, not to jump ahead, but the prom where she goes there with like her brother or her cousin, I believe it is.
Her
like
cousin, yeah.
Her cousin, so that like kind of tells you right there, okay, maybe she's not as popular as we think she is, and whereas Tristan's still kind of on his high horse and going around doing like the whole shtick. So I don't think we got enough of Tristan's backstory to kind of make us care about this role that he's playing yet. Maybe we will in future seasons. I don't know, but I feel like right now he just comes off as a douche, and instead of maybe giving him this character arc of like, well, this is why he's doing what he's doing, I don't think we got that much of him in comparison, obviously, to Paris, which makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, because Paris, they're like explaining her behavior. That's like her whole persona. Like, we don't even get Tristan's whole persona. We just see like how he behaves with Rory because he has a crush on her, which that's just not giving us enough. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Not the only one that has a crush on Rory. She's pretty popular here because while all of this is going on, she's sparking a romance with Dean, who's a student who just moved in from Chicago as Rory was leaving the public school, as Mike alluded to earlier. It's evident pretty clearly that Rory has never talked to a guy before this, but that puppy love kind of exudes a lot out of her here because she goes to the market just to see Dean and even gets so scared when she mentions her feelings about him that she just like runs away from him. That's a theme. She just kind of darts off when things get tough here. Theo, I want to hear your thoughts on early Rory and Dean here while their romance is starting to brew.
So I actually really like their dialogue. Like something I hate in shows like this is when like characters like talk once and then like the future times they're just talking about like how they love each other and they like can't get away from each other and you're like, when did this happen? I thought we got a lot of like really good like Dean and Rory like candid like young people like talking about like real stuff dialogue, like their interests and stuff. Like it's a little awkward, but they break a little tension each time. I thought they actually like let some of these conversations linger on for a couple minutes in a way that I enjoyed. So yeah, on the like I saw some of Lorelai's relationships they kind of forced on us too quickly before you're like, wait, why do these people like each other? But I actually thought they did a really good job, like naturally building up this Rory Dean relationship in a way that I kind of started rooting for it throughout the season.
Yeah, and by the way, some of those conversations should be awkward. They should feel a little bit awkward. They should feel lingering early on. That's what made it so intriguing to me. Like I thought some of my most favorite scenes were with her and Lane practicing what she would say to Dean or like what would happen if they go into the place he works on Wednesdays, whatever it is. So like it's clear that she doesn't have much experience talking to guys that she likes, obviously, and she's clearly smitten by Dean. I believe it's the first or second episode where she actually doesn't want to go to Chilton because of Dean, because of the guy. It's not even because of the fact that her grandparents are paying for Lorelai. I think it's because she likes a boy and he just moved in that school that she's now leaving. But I thought it like Theo mentioned, we didn't get this massive jump of like, oh my gosh, now they like each other a lot. It's like it's clearly like a slow build up and it made sense. The dialogue was funny. It's clearly they have some similar interests. He comes over to the house with pizza. It's a little bit awkward. They're watching movies. It's fun. The conversations are good. It's like, okay, this makes a lot of sense instead of like we're just jumping to, okay, there's some attraction initially and then they just jump into, wow, I love you. I'm getting you all these presents. It's not that. It's actually like a slow build up, which actually makes more sense.
I think this is the show's superpower. I think they do a better job of perhaps any show I've seen, maybe ever, at the dialogue between characters. The only show I can think of that even comes close is Succession, to be honest, which is a premium HBO show. But it does an amazing job of portraying people actually in high school. And I understand with a lot of modern shows, it's tough to cast people young and keep them young with how shows are, because a lot of times the modern formula is it's 10 episodes, they're all released at once. The next season is 2 or 3 years after. So even if you get an actor and actress at like 16 or 17, by the next season, when they're supposed to be a sophomore or junior in high school, they're already 20. Then you do that pattern again, by the time they're graduating, they're like 25 or 26 years old. And you can kind of see through it, even if they have a younger looking face. Here, again, different era, but even so, they talk like teenagers. It's so refreshing. They have the awkward pauses. They stumble over their words sometimes. They try to practice what they say to each other, as both of you mentioned there. Like that to me makes the show so refreshing because it is believable and it makes you feel like you're actually there and it makes you care because too often with stuff nowadays, again, it's so fleshed out. It's too formulaic. That's not how the real world works. Especially when you're this age, you're gonna have nerves. You're gonna have usually a spark that starts it, and then it's gonna be a slow burn. You don't just ask someone out after a week. And I think that's what's so brilliant here is they have the first interaction. Then she thinks about him a little more. Then she sees he works at the market. Then they talk a little there. Then they clearly figure out they live next to each other and start going to see each other kind of secretively. Then they're a little bit more open. Then we go on and go on until they're eventually dating. I think it's a perfect, realistic progression that, again, like Theo said, it makes you root for it because you're like, okay, she seems awesome here. He has an infinity for her. And because of that, like, this is one of the only relationships in the show, in my opinion, that makes sense the entire time. We'll get into the rest later on, but I feel like there are moments where cartoonish isn't the right word, but maybe it's a bit over the top with some of these other inner working relationships, whether it's romantic or not, where there's a scene or two where I'm like, oh, I think maybe they overdid it here. With Rory and Dean, I feel like pretty much all of their scenes, to me, make a lot of sense.
No, they do make a lot of sense. I think that one of my favorite episodes was the one where they're at the prom and they don't even know if they're dating yet. They're like, "Oh, is this like your boyfriend?" And then she's like, even kind of, it's awkward because she doesn't even know like if there's a label yet. She's kind of like, "This is Dean, like this guy that I'm seeing." Like it's not even like official label, like you said. It's a slow transition into we getting eventually they date and then we get to the whole thing. But it's a very like slow build up to that. But again, it makes sense in their world because again it's teenagers acting like teenagers. We don't get these 27-year-olds playing 17 and 16-year-olds and try to portray teenagers. It's actually just them, portraying teenagers.
Yeah, another thing with the casting too, when you cast like adults to play teenagers, they all look the same age, like they're adults too. And I feel like this show actually, even with like the extras and stuff, like people like they're all in the same high school, but when you're in high school, like people develop at different rates. People look a very different span of ages. And I feel like there's scenes in the hallway where they did a good job here where it really looks like a high school and people there's like a wide span of ages that people look like because they actually casted people that are the age of who they're portraying.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant point, and I think casting is one of the other show's superpowers where it feels like everyone kinda knows their role incredibly well. They understand, there's gonna be some episodes here where even, like, Lorelai and Rory aren't the main focus, yet they do a good job of maximizing their presence when they're on the screen. But going away from Rory and Dean for a second here, we have to go to Rory's English teacher because, as you do, we get some Max Medina and Lorelai action because Lorelai, during a parent teacher conference, starts spitting over the English teacher, which is Max Medina. And Max pretty much overly pursues her here. And then we get this budding romance, which Rory's kind of weary about. And that fills in a few episodes. Theo, I know you have a lot of thoughts on how this develops, but early on, the idea of as soon as we get a parent teacher conference, the first guy you're spitting over is your daughter's English teacher. Kind of a crazy concept.
Well, this is the thing early is like any time that we see Lorelai around like any guy, like they're in love with her, they're all over her. She's very attractive, but it's like every single guy is into her, making a move, and she's like entertaining everybody. So we get a lot, and this is like, I mean, she openly knows it's a bad idea, but we're still gonna go along with the bad idea. I was like, I guess.
Yeah, to me, right away, I was like, okay, this is not good. This is not good news for obvious reasons, like you guys both mentioned. It's Rory's English teacher. But again, it's funny how every single guy is like, oh wait, you're Rory's mom because she looks young. She's supposed to look young. Obviously, she's like 32 and Rory's 16. She's only 16 years older than her. And she's in these parent teacher conferences. Obviously, I think Rory had like the first couple of days she had like I think she missed a class or she was late for a test or late for an exam. And they were both hard on her, both Max Medina and I believe the Grandmaster, the the chairmaster of the school.
Headmaster.
Yeah, the headmaster of the school. Yeah, yeah. Again, I don't know these private schools like that, but yeah, they were both a little bit hard on, and they were like, "Yeah, Lorelai, this is how it is in these private schools." And she was kind of again smitten by Max Medina, but early on, I was like, "This is not a good idea." But like you mentioned, Theo, like she kind of entertains all of it. She doesn't entertain Rune or the guy that her mother tries to set her up with, but she's clearly smitten by Max Medina. Which again, that's if she's all for it, then go for it. But obviously, you have to tread lightly, knowing okay, this is Rory's teacher here. There are certain boundaries that come with that. How are we going to balance Rory being my kid in this guy's class and me having attractive feelings toward this guy?
And that's why I didn't really like. I felt like it was the type of relationship I don't like on TV, where they have like one good conversation at the beginning, and then the rest of the conversations are all like, "How are we going to be together?" Like but you're getting no more of like anything that shows you like why they should be together. Like they had the initial flirtation, then after that it was like we can't be together, but we need to be together, and we just got a lot of like push and pull with that, and that's
It's clearly a it's a physical attraction thing because like you said, we get some episodes where we don't even see Max Medina, we don't even see them together talking. It's like I don't know if she cut him off or the vice versa, but they clearly know it's not good for Rory. It's not healthy for either of them to be seeing each other with Rory being in his class, but they clearly don't want to stop talking to each other because they like each other so much or they're physically attracted to each other so much. So I think it's that angle more of like it's the complete opposite of Rory and Dean, really, where they're talking so much and they're building up to something with with Max and Lorelai. It's the opposite. It's like we're on, we're off, we're on, we're off. We can't really, we don't really have an off button necessarily, but we kind of have to play it. We have to tread lightly again.
I guess my problem with it is, like, there's not a single other hot mom at Chilton. This was the one. He was so smitten that he had to go out with her. He says after 3 interactions with her, which are pretty brief, most of them are about Rory, and then it gets to like, "Oh, you're so attractive." Like, I think we should date. Why? Why do you think that? Besides the fact that she's attractive. Like,
Right.
again, sometimes it does happen. These come in different shapes and sizes, obviously. I do think we were missing a scene or two here. Like, we could have had them meet somewhere somehow that wasn't at Chilton to spark this romance a little bit more. And we didn't really get that. And even like their first date gets sidelined because Babette, which is the neighbor, her cat passes away. So therefore, that is a huge storyline. It like impacts their date, and then they're like, "Oh, I don't know. I was supposed to meet Max, but it got canceled, and now it's weird between us." Like, and that's kind of the issue with Lorelai's dating, as we'll get throughout this review. And I think it's meant to show us that Lorelai isn't a perfect character. Like, I do grasp that she is very flawed, and as much as these men are pursuing her, she's also entertaining it quite frequently. But even then, it's like she kind of has this self dialogue where often she's talking about how, like, she doesn't want to make it hard on Rory. But then you would presume that she would turn some of these people away. And I understand part of that contradiction is supposed to, show us about the character of Lorelai. But you can't have your cake and eat it too, because then other times she's like, "Oh, this is the first man I brought to my house." So, like, now we get to see you're entertaining every guy you come across, but the last, whatever, 15 years of Rory's life, you weren't talking to anybody? Like, I don't know. That's where maybe you lose me a smidge.
Yeah, I
It's like
think
she
they.
Oh,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Mike.
I was gonna say they do a good job showing that she's flawed. I personally love flawed characters, so I think
Me
that's why
too.
Lorelai is my favorite character, is because they kind of tell us right away without telling us. Lorelai's supposed to be someone that does not make the best decisions. She doesn't have the best decision making skills. That's kind of what her parents are kind of. That's why they're a little tiff there. Like, we don't have the whole backstory. We know that she had Rory young, and that her parents didn't really love the decision of having a kid that young without kind of settling down first. But it's meant for us to kind of it tells us it tells us without telling us that she doesn't make the best decisions. And I think this Max Medina thing is maybe not her best decision overall, but it kind of goes back to your point where it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. You kind of have to, pick your poison here.
She's selective with like the Rory excuse. Like she would use it if she like really needed to shut something down, it seems like, but at the same time, like I'm not sure she's applying it to everybody she meets. Like it's not a universal rule.
No, and she does not want Rory to turn out like her necessarily from like a dating perspective, but obviously she still wants to have those talks with Rory of like, obviously they have certain rules there. It was like you can't bring guys over. That's kind of where I was like, okay, so in the 16 years, like Rory's 16 now, she didn't really have any relationships like this Max Medina character. It just kind of happened out of nowhere here at Chilton. So that was interesting to me. But I mean, there's obviously others than Max Medina that are possibly on the scale here for Lorelai.
Yeah, and it's so easy to just do the thing. I know there's a scene where she's like, "Oh, I haven't brought a guy in the house before." It's so easy to say, like, "I've only brought one guy to the house before." Or, "I've never brought a guy to the house before because the other two, I went to their place." Like, something like that. And I understand that we're trying to make her, like, super layered as a character. I do get that. But we do cross the point of, like, okay, like, now she can't keep her eyes off anybody, or especially no one could keep their eyes off her. So I don't know, but maybe a little bit too much of that for me. We could have just toned it down a little bit. She's obviously gorgeous, that's obvious, but we don't have to maybe say it every single episode with every single guy that comes across her. It'd actually be funny, I think, if there was a guy who like just wasn't into her
Well,
whatsoever,
there
and she was
is.
trying to get there is, I guess,
Rune.
but she was trying to get it reciprocated, I'll say.
Yeah.
I don't think she cared about Rune's lack
No.
of affection.
Yeah, that double date where she was, like, surprised where, like, somebody didn't like her. They were like, "I want nothing to do with you." That was, like, the only but I am overall I'm with you. Like, everyone seems smitten by Lorelai, and again, how could you not? And it's not just her looks either. Like, she actually has good banter with guys. It's clear that she knows how to talk to guys, and it's obviously clear that Rory does not know how to talk to guys. Not that that's a bad thing. It's clear that she doesn't have much experience talking to guys, which is why her conversations with Lane, her best friend, and obviously her conversations with Tristan and Dean aren't the smoothest initially. But with Lorelai, it's like from episode 1, from Jump Street, her and Luke's conversations are easygoing. Her and Max's conversation, while they're kind of again treading, they obviously have good friendly banter on top of the physical
Which,
attraction.
Mike, how'd she develop this?
I guess we're led to believe she'd been going on dates, but like not taking extra steps of like bringing men home, I guess is what we're supposed to read in between the lines there.
Sure, that's what we're supposed to think. Yeah, but again, obviously her
Yeah,
parents don't
because
love.
commitment issues are a pretty big thing in this season.
Yes,
Which again, I like it. I just feel like perhaps we had like 10 examples, maybe 7 would have sufficed, and we could have spread the love somewhere else. We do have to shift back to Rory here because Rory and Dean start to actually date. They kiss in the market, which is kind of hilarious because then Rory literally runs into traffic, which is one of my favorite scenes in the entire season. Rory asks Dean to a formal, as Mike mentioned earlier, which Emily is absolutely thrilled about. She can't get enough of this. She comes by, takes pictures, all of that. Dean confronts Tristan at this date about just the fact that he continues to harass Rory at school and call her names and whatnot. And then Rory and Dean stay out late. They fall asleep in Miss Patty's studio on like a beanbag chair, I guess.
yeah,
Rory doesn't come home, and we get this massive scene, probably one of the defining scenes of the entire season, where Emily and Lorelai freak out about Rory not being home. And then Emily freaks out on Lorelai because she's basically accusing Lorelai, like, look, you're losing control of her. This
again,
is what
yeah.
happened with you. She's going to get pregnant, all of this. Lorelai then freaks out on Rory when Rory gets home because she's like, I don't want you to turn into me. This can't happen. All of this stuff. So I want you to talk about the fact that like Rory and Dean kind of heating up a little bit here, and then also this dynamic of Rory, Lorelai, and Emily, which has to do with also their mother-daughter relationships, but even further so that there's a guy now in the picture with Rory.
Yeah, I think first of all, what I love about this show actually is Emily. It's what I love about other shows mostly is that Emily's able to kind of get her way without kind of pushing too hard. Like you can tell Emily and Lorelai's conversations are a little bit like again they're going back and forth. But initially, Rory wants nothing to do with the formal. She's like, I'm not gonna go. And obviously, Lorelai's like, yeah, you're not gonna go. And then once Emily finds out that she's not gonna go, she's like, well, just ask her. What's a once in a lifetime experience? She's like, just bring it up to her. And then she brings it up to her. And then of course Rory's like, okay, I'll bring it up to Dean. And then they go. It's like, okay, that's just a perfect way of like you're kind of playing telephone to like get your way in a little bit. Obviously, it goes awry because, like you said, they don't come home. So you're immediately thinking, oh crap, here we go again. She's gonna get pregnant at 16, the same age that Lorelai did. A guy didn't bring her home last night. What could they possibly have been up to? Obviously, nothing really happened because they just fell asleep in Miss Patty's studio, which is very that kind of came out of left field for me. I was like, okay, what is the story here of like just falling asleep? It was really nothing, but again, it led to the big thing because the overarching point is not making the same mistake again, which it's classified as a mistake, but obviously Lorelai doesn't view it as, her having Rory young was not like a mistake on her end. It was just they're freaking out. Emily's freaking out about it because again, you're seeing her turn into her mom in a way, even though literally nothing happened. So I thought that whole dynamic from the older generation to Lorelai, then to Rory was fascinating over just what was really not a huge deal. It's just again, it feels like a huge deal considering their backstory.
Yeah, I think they do a great job with Emily and Lorelai whenever they're together because, like, apart, I feel like they're both like pretty awesome, very likable. But then when it's just the two of them together, like they really bring out the ugliness in each other, and you kind of when they both do stuff when it's just the two of them, it kind of turns you off from both of them, and I think that's like a really good job with the show because obviously like we're not there for the 16 years in between of their relationship kind of drifting.
Yeah.
But we're still kind of able to see the fallback and why their relationship has not been able to go back to normal.
Why there's tension. I mean, they both go low. And there's times where they'll both like they'll throw in shots. I'm like, wow, oh, they went there. But again, you can tell again without telling us the 16 years of backstory, they're giving us this dialogue that kind of explains why there's some bad blood there a little bit.
Yeah, and the bad blood is basically, because I don't think we've necessarily touched on it just yet, is because Lorelai feels like her childhood, she was kind of being groomed to be like Emily, and she didn't necessarily like that. She didn't like the pomp and circumstance, going to the private school, wearing the dresses, all that stuff. Then she gets pregnant, of course, and then essentially runs away from home And that feels like the catalyst of everything here. It always comes back to the fact that Lorelai had Rory and wasn't letting Emily or Richard in their lives for all of that time, and basically only let them back when she absolutely needed them for something.
That's the big thing too, and also leaving Christopher, who I know we only get one episode of him, but it's clear that even just in the one episode we get of him, there's a lot there as well that still is
I cannot wait to get into that.
100%. We'll put a bow in that.
And the big thing is Emily and Richard wanted Lorelai to get married to Christopher. I think she
They loved
feels
him.
like they tried to force that upon her, and I think that's part of the reason that she
Yeah,
ended up leaving.
and she wasn't ready for it, despite them loving Christopher, being like, he's the perfect guy. Why would you even not want to settle down with him? But obviously, she maybe wasn't ready for that.
This is super in the weeds, but going back to the Rory and Dean dance episode here, which is episode 9, I think what the show also does, which is brilliant, I believe the episodes were like 40, 45 minutes, right? I couldn't really tell when they were going to end, and that's a good thing. That is a compliment because I think they went by pretty easily. I was never necessarily bored throughout. There were some scenes that were lackluster, but for the most part, I was pretty engaged throughout the time. And I didn't necessarily know when it was like 35 minutes or 45 minutes. But also, the other part, there were plenty of scenes where I was like, "Oh, this is when the show's gonna end." Then it extends and it furthers the story even more. They could have easily fell asleep, woke up like an hour later or whatever, and went home, and that's the end of it. But the show producers and the writers made a point that, like, this is not over. We're gonna continue a story that actually leads in to the next episode and actually has continuity because Lorelai and Rory have this big argument, and then in the next episode, they're not talking to each other. Emily's not talking to Lorelai. Lorelai's not talking to Rory. And I think that is also brilliant. Too many times, especially with sitcoms or shows adjacent to Gilmore Girls, you get these big blowups in one episode, and the next episode, everything's fine. Or you get these like dance episodes, the entire episode's the dance, then that's it. The dance ends, they go home. How's the dance? Oh my God, it was amazing. And then that's the show. There's
Just
not
friends,
like
yeah.
necessarily story building. There's never really wasted scenes here. Everything comes back. And even if it is a wasted scene, it's almost intentional. It's like, we're going to kind of throw you off the scent here for this big crescendo that's coming later. I just think the writing between the dialogue, the show length and pacing, how they're kind of building up each episode, I think all of that is so refreshing.
Especially of the main characters are the important characters. I think that those scenes are never wasted to me. I feel like those are all like important to know for the next episode or for the next scene. It's not like one of those episodes like you said where it's like you have this and then we'll never revisit this again. Like it just won't be something we revisit. It feels like that there's something that will transition to the next episode that will make sense. And it's not like stories that feel out of place.
And then how do they get them back talking again? Yeah, nothing like a near family tragedy to restore order.
Yeah.
Yes, which is Richard having a heart attack, I believe, and he's in the hospital for a little while, and that, as Theo mentioned, basically brings them all back together. That's something we're gonna circle back to way later. First here, Lorelai gets cold feet with Max Medina, and she makes out with him at Parent Teacher Day at Chilton, which Paris somehow sees through the window. And the rest of the season, they have this push-pull. I do want you to put a pin in that. We're going to circle back to Lorelai and Max Medina a little bit later because here, Christopher comes back to throw a wrench into everything.
Perfect
At the end of an episode, it looks like the episode's about to end, and then all of a sudden, Motorcycle Man reveals, hey, it's Christopher, who doesn't call, which I think is a ballsy move, because what if they're out of town that weekend? So I thought that was pretty crazy. And he's an absentee father. We get a line where Rory says he only calls like once a week. So that's basically where we're at with him. He mentions that this is the first time he's ever been there. What? He's from there, we're led to believe. So the fact he never comes to visit his daughter, that's the kind of guy we're dealing with. And like, this guy is a trip, man. He pretends he's like some prosperous businessman,
Not even
which
close.
like how are you gonna pretend you're a prosperous businessman and then your credit card gets declined when you try to buy
Immediately.
a book? Like,
Immediately.
what are
Yeah.
we doing here? And then we get this big episode where his parents come to have a dinner
Oh my
with
God.
him and Lorelai and Rory, and then Emily and Richard are hosting, and it all blows up, and it all has to do with them getting pregnant at such a young age, having Rory, but also like Rory's an amazing kid. They did the best they could. Really, Lorelai did the best they could to make Rory become this awesome human being. So we get this inner working of relationships between Christopher and Lorelai, and then obviously both sets of parents, and then Rory feeling bad as if like, because if you're in that situation and you're Rory, like, God, like, what is supposed to happen to me here? You're basically saying, like, I shouldn't exist. It's incredibly awkward for her. And then, again, one of my other favorite scenes in this season is Emily going up to Rory and she's like, no matter what you heard in there, you are not a mistake. Like, I thought that was one of the most, like, actually heartwarming moments. Like, you are a great young woman and all of that. I thought that was a really heartwarming scene. So, with all of that being mentioned, Theo, just go off on Christopher here before I can. This whole storyline is bonkers.
Yeah, this guy sucks. And this is not something, usually when there's like an angle like this, it does not happen in season 1. So it was kind of a shock reveal when he popped off the motorcycle helmet and Lorelai was like, Christopher? But yeah, then he just comes, he apparently has never been there. He's like, no, I'll just stay here for the week. And then I kind of love when a dinner party blows up. I mean, one of my favorite Office episodes is the dinner party gone wrong where the Dundee goes into the plasma TV. So we get a disastrous dinner party here with Lorelai's parents and Christopher's parents. And they kind of start fighting each other. We actually get a really good Richard moment where he like steps in and defends
Yeah.
Lorelai, and we're like, this is awesome.
That was
And then
big.
he kind of undoes all of it when she tries to thank him. He's like, no, I actually am still disappointed in you, but I had to defend the good Gilmore name.
That was hilarious. No, okay, so yeah, the whole episode here, the first scenes we get of Christopher is kind of Rory giving him a tour of Stars Hollow because, as you guys mentioned, apparently has never visited. I think he's from San Francisco. Like he just motorcycled across I believe is what it is. I think he's from San Francisco. That's what is why he doesn't visit much because it's so far away.
Definitely California.
It's
Yeah.
definitely California. I don't know. Maybe I'm not exact with the exact location there, but he gets there and immediately tries to buy Rory a book, and the credit card doesn't work. So it's clear right away that he's struggling. He's not as prosperous as a businessman as we're made to believe that he is. But that dinner party, those are some of my favorite scenes because obviously Lorelai's parents are not the biggest fans of Lorelai for her decisions. Nothing to do with Rory. Rory's not at fault for any of this. But then you meet Christopher's parents, and whatever you thought that Lorelai's parents thought of her, it's 10 times worse with Christopher's parents. I mean, they are just absolutely grilling her, absolutely giving it to her, and that's obviously why Richard steps in to defend the Gilmore names because they're kind of going at her. They're like, how could Christopher ever, get with somebody like this? Like they absolutely go scorched earth on Lorelai. So it was funny that we got that good Richard scene there, and obviously the good Emily scene with Rory there. Christopher's parents, not the best people, I don't think. And then Christopher himself, not the best guy in the world. Yet obviously him and Lorelai still to this day, 16 years later, are they still have that attraction. I mean, they're doing the deed on the balcony that very night after the dinner's over.
Mike, they say that's where Rory was conceived.
That exact place.
Which is unbelievable. I could not believe they put that in, which I thought was hilarious. I was shocked that they said it.
It's in there, yeah. I mean, it's something I guess we had to know. So yeah, that's another, again, this is all during the Max Medina thing as well. So again, like you said, it's just an episode that's kind of thrown in there right in the middle of these things that Lorelai's dealing with. And then obviously Christopher plops in and it's like we're back like we're never left.
Yeah, well, the Christopher angle here is he left his family to go be a businessman, but he sucks at being a businessman. So now I guess he's like, okay, I'll attempt to come back and be a family man. And they're like, you haven't been here. We actually don't really want you. I mean, I think Rory kind of wants him, but I think Lorelai's like,
wants him,
yeah,
though.
Rory does, but Lorelai's like committed to the single parent thing now. And honestly, it seems like Christopher doesn't have much to offer of any help or any value.
Rory's the one person that, like, no matter what previously happened to her, she'll give anyone a fair shake. Like, obviously, it's meant to believe that like early on in the season, Lorelai like doesn't want Rory to like her grandparents like necessarily. Like I remember in the golf episode, she's like, "Oh, was it boring? Like, did you hate it when you went out with Richard to the golf thing?" And Rory was like, "No, I actually kind of liked it." And I have divorced parents, and I can kind of like I can tell there's some narrative driven things where it's one part of the family wants to say something else, and they're like, "You didn't really enjoy that. Like, you didn't really." And obviously, Lorelai at the beginning is like not necessarily wanting Rory to like the other side of the family or whatever it is. And then with Christopher's case, like obviously Rory likes Christopher too, even though Christopher's not meant to be a good dude. Like he's obviously been out of the picture for 16 years, but even then she's still like, giving him a tour of the town, giving him a shot to be a real dad. So, Rory's like of the morals of everyone in the show, Rory's obviously got like the best moral. Like she's giving everyone a fair shake, even if they're not necessarily the best person or the best, the best.
Yeah, and when we review characters in a little bit for like the entire season, I think Rory is going to be atop most of our lists here for that exact very reason. Two things with Christopher. One, I think Theo, said exactly what I was going to say. I think they could have built this up a little longer. We get his name like maybe once or twice before this, but I think this could have been a really good slow build. Perhaps they mention him a little bit more, and then at the end of season one, that's your cliffhanger and throws everything awry, or we just save it for like a season 2 or season 3. Here, it felt too like, oh, we actually have to write him in now. Like we have to change stuff up, so we have to bring him in. And then the other thing, which I think is pretty obvious, and I'm shocked neither of you have mentioned yet. Like, look, just from experience, I feel like this is just my opinion. I feel like if your estranged like high school relationship is gone for 16 years, calls at max once a week, is on the other side of the country, and you don't see them all the time, if ever, I don't think you're just gonna start like giving him the googly eyes as soon as he comes back around. I feel like they should have had a little bit more of a rift, and then maybe Christopher worked on her a bit, and then her guard was down because, oh, this is Christopher with the warm eyes and who I had a kid with. I feel like Lorelai was just kind of too assuming way too quickly, even when he's like, oh, I gotta find a place to stay. She immediately invites him in. I'm like, I get it because it is the father of her child who she loves dearly. I just felt like it was a little bit too much too fast for
And he doesn't earn it at all. Like he doesn't even really present himself in a good way, but he still kind of gets right where he wants to be.
That's what I was gonna say. That's one of those where like I've seen in other shows in the past where they'll introduce the Christopher character at like the end of season 1 and kind of as a cliffhanger into season 2. It's like okay, and then you build through with like a bunch of episodes in season 2, and then he works on Lorelai that way. And it seemed a little bit like sped up. Like we have to kind of again we wrote him in here. We have to have this kind of process speed up a little bit. But I would have probably liked to see them kind of deal with the Max Manita thing first, and then actually eventually get to the Christopher. Oh, now he shows up at the end of season 1 as like a cliffhanger, and then we'll see if they build on episodes after that. I don't know if Christopher comes back in season 2. I have no idea, but in the one episode, it did seem like they kind of sped up that process a little.
And I will say, like, he comes in the waning seconds of episode 14. He's gone by the end of episode 15.
It's one.
I think it just goes way too fast. I think I was thinking throughout, like, what would I have pitched differently? I think it would have been really interesting if his being a good businessman hinged on like a deal he thought was like a slam dunk. We've seen that in other shows. He's like, yes, this is a slam dunk deal. Like, look, look, Lorelai, like I'm changed, like I'm making all these deals, and then the deal falls apart. Something like that, I think, could have really played that up and made that all make a bit more sense.
I think he should have been around like a Rachel. Someone will talk later, like a kind of like a vagabond character that came home for Luke and was around for a couple episodes, and then like ultimately like too much time apart, like they just couldn't make it work. So she went and hit the road again, and also because he had like other interests, like they could have just ran that play with Lorelai and Christopher, and I think we all would have liked that way more.
I agree. Even though I'm gonna kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth here, I didn't love the Rachel. I mean, I didn't like. I like.
Well,
her
hold
inclusion.
on, Mike.
I didn't like it with them, but
Yes, I agree. But I agree with your point about they could have done that with Christopher. But I also don't like. I don't. It's not that I don't like Rachel's inclusion. I'll save it for later.
Yeah, hold on that point because before we move on to Rachel, I do want to say Christopher did ask Lorelai for marriage here,
Yeah. He did.
and Like,
Too soon.
why? What are we doing?
just
What is
showed up.
happening here?
Yeah, that was
You
weird.
know?
No.
This is just so ridiculous and over the top. And again, we're meant to believe that this is just kind of who these people are. But it's so many instances back to back to back to back. Where I'm like, okay, maybe we could have toned it down a little bit. Maybe we could have just did like, he wants to move back to Star's Hollow storyline. I don't
Sure.
know, marriage. And as soon as he's rejected, he's gone.
Out of
He's
there.
out of there. He's out of town. See you later. We don't see him the rest of the season.
That was his Hail Mary. Yeah, that was his
Again,
Hail Mary.
all of this basically takes place in episode 15. All we get in episode 14 is him unveiling the helmet and coming back. That's it. So this is all in like 45 minutes, which again, he does dominate. He's pretty much the entire episode.
Yes.
He meets Dean. He does the credit card decline thing, trying to get the book, and then tries
He
to
sleeps
make
on
up
the
with
couch.
Lorelai a few times. Yeah,
Yeah,
sleeps on the
okay.
couch, of course. So it is all him. He dominates episode 15. But even then, I feel like we just speed ran what could have been like 3 or 4 episodes because it's not like anything else in the show, which I think why it stands out so much.
Do we even get like a reason why he came back? Like, I guess it was to try to get back with Lorelai, but like, why? Like,
No, I thought it was because he was struggling, but I also thought it was because he wanted to be in Rory's life. That's the main point. I thought it was because he actually wanted to be starting to be a family guy. But if that was the case, then you would kind of bring him into this like you would have him on for more than one episode, obviously. Like you said, he was out after the rejection of the marriage. By the way, not the first time somebody proposes marriage to Lorelai in season 1. So I don't know. That was again like, what are you doing? Like immediately it was marriage or I'm back to San Fran. I mean, there was no like, hey, maybe I'll just stay for a little bit longer than one episode in just 45 minutes and maybe like work my way in and earn it. Like you were saying, I think Theo said it earlier. He didn't earn anything, so he just left. And kind of like, I guess that's what Christopher's character is. That's what they want us to know.
Yeah, I just think it all happens a bit too fast. I think even 2 episodes, if this was stretched across 2 episodes that he was a focal point in, I think you would have me a little bit more. Again, there's just not really another episode dominated by one person that just goes away magically. And I think it sticks out because he is so important from a figurative standpoint because we get this like silent generation / baby boomer dynamic between the sets of parents of both Christopher and Lorelai, the gender stereotypes of like, it's your fault you got pregnant. Christopher, even though you were half the 2 to tango there, it's not really your fault because you're the man, which I think does play a pretty important role throughout season 1 where Christopher kind of exudes all blame despite being far much of a loser than Lorelai is. Lorelai has her own house. She's running it in. She's raising her daughter. Christopher is just an abject failure with a motorcycle and pretty eyes. So I think that dynamic is interesting to me, but not to beat a dead horse. I would just like to see it play out a little bit more. And I assume it does over time. I don't think this is the last we've seen of him, but like, dude, could we have at least got his name mentioned a few times? That's all I'm asking.
If
yeah,
that is
last
the
thing-
yeah.
his parents blame Lorelai for him not going to Princeton, but he didn't stay to raise the child. So, like, what actually kept him from going to Princeton?
Yeah, we didn't get any of that unanswered stuff either. So I think that if this is the last time we see Christopher, I still have a lot of questions for him. So I'm with you. I kind of want to see him back because I'm like, we can't just have 45 minutes of him dominating the episode, but then not know all the other stuff that happened in between and after. Like, I kind of want to. That's got to be resolved, you would think.
So we're going to do a 1-2 here. So the first part is Rory and Dean have a 3-month anniversary. This took me back. I feel like if it existed at the time, this would have been all over their Snapchat stories. But they have a 3-month anniversary. They go to a nice dinner. Dean shows that he's building Rory a car, which, good on him. And Dean admits to Rory that he loves her and she freezes. And they basically break up over this. That's it, man. You can't say it back. We're done. That's it. Nice knowing you. Goodbye. Put a pin in that. We're going to circle back to both Rory and Dean and Lorelai and Max because first we had to talk about Lorelai and Luke, and I can already see the comments. How have you not mentioned Lorelai and Luke yet? We were waiting for this. We were waiting for a little in here, and this is where we get it because while all of this world building is going on, the constant throughout this season is Lorelai's infatuation with Coffee Man, Mr. Luke, Luke's diner, and Rory and Lorelai eat at Luke's basically every day, excuse me. He's always around. He's not super duper important, but he's always kind of the guy they're leaning on. So he kind of has this air of like eventually he's gonna be a little bit more prominent. He's kind of comedic relief at times. He's a hard-nosed guy, but he has a soft spot for these Gilmore Girls. And numerous times throughout the season, he suggests that he has feelings for Lorelai kind of subtly. He doesn't just come out and say, like, oh, I'm in love with Lorelai. It's a bit more subtle, and you kind of have to read between the lines a bit. And there's a few episodes where it looks like one's going to ask each other out, but something happens, or someone comes back, or someone leaves, something of the sort. And when Lorelai seems to pull away, it seems like she realizes this and wants to come back. She's like, Luke, I'm gonna paint the diner with you. Luke's standing there and gets bailed. He gets ditched because Lorelai's doing it with Christopher on the balcony. And then all of a sudden, Lorelai feels terrible, but you can't feel bad for too long because Luke's ex, Rachel, who does get mentioned in a really interesting way. There's a rummage sale a few episodes before she comes back where Lorelai buys a sweatshirt and it is Rachel's, and we learn the backstory of Rachel, which is Luke's long-term kind of on-again, off-again girlfriend who is a photographer, and she travels around the world and she just can't stay in one place for too long. And Luke was in love with her and hated the fact that she ran away. Well, she came crawling back, and we get this bizarre sort of circumstance where it's like Lorelai and Luke, but also Luke and Rachel, but Lorelai and Rachel are kind of frenemies, and they kind of navigate the waters going around each other. But also, while all of that's happening, Lorelai is getting, relations with Max Medina and then having some fun with Christopher. So this is all a big jumbled mess. So Mike, what do you make of Lorelai and Luke first, and then we're going to tie it back to Rachel in a second?
I like Luke. I'm a big fan. I'm a fan of Luke. I'm a Luke fan. I don't remember which episode it is specifically, but it's one of my favorite lines of the show. And I think it was Rory. Somebody brings up Luke as like a love interest to Lorelai, and she shuts it down because if things don't work out, she can never go back and have coffee at his place. So clearly the coffee is what's is what's getting her to Luke every single day. I don't know what he does to his coffee, what he puts in the coffee, but obviously it's got Lorelai under like some kind of spell. Like she loves Luke's coffee, obviously. But I like their dynamic. Again, you can kind of tell that they're like friends first, and then there might be feelings underneath that initial friendship because they see each other again, literally like every single day. She goes there every single day. Luke is in, I think, every single episode because she's always going to the diner for something, even if it's something small. So I like Luke. I don't know how he's going to make this work with Rachel coming back. That one kind of threw a wrench as well. And also Rachel's first scene with Lorelai is kind of like, they're kind of, it's not like they're trying to explain that it's just a friendship thing, but that she's also heard a lot about Rachel. So it's kind of like, there's not love interest there, but with Rachel, there's obviously a past that we don't know about yet. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, we know what happens later in the season with Rachel and her leaving again, but it's not for the reasons that you would think. It's obviously because Luke has feelings for Lorelai, which again are not said explicitly, but it's kind of hinted at. So I'm interested to see in season 2 if that actually materializes. But obviously, you have the Max Medina thing. You had the Chris one episode of that, and so it just feels like, is it ever going to be Luke's time? And it's a timing thing because, like you said, a couple times that they've been close. Something has happened. Something's ruined it. I think there was one scene where they were actually it was close to happening, and then obviously the heart attack happened, where she had to go to the hospital, and Luke was there for that too. So Luke was at the hospital with her. He's always in these important scenes with her around Emily and Richard, and they must think that something is afoot with Luke and Lorelai because they're always together. But obviously nothing has sparked as far as like love interest yet.
Luke is definitely my preferred love interest for Lorelai out of anyone that we meet on the season. Again, just because it like comes across way more naturally. You can kind of see a way that they could kind of integrate into each other's lives in a more seamless way. But then just on a funny note, just about how Rory and Lorelai are eating at this diner every day. Lorelai, great mom. We got to do something about Rory's diet. I mean, she's 16. She's drinking multiple cups of coffee every day. Seemingly, like, all they eat is burgers and pizza. Like, I don't know. Suki's, like, making all this great food at the inn, but we can't bring home, like like a healthy dinner with like some sweet potatoes. Like I don't know what's going on. It's just like Pop-Tarts, pizza, burgers,
Microwavable
coffee.
Man,
stuff.
they're both sought after commodities here. Like everyone seems to be in love with them at all times, and I don't know. Like they're doing well for themselves. Rory's doing great at Chilton. Lorelai's running the inn. I mean, clearly that diet is breed of champions here.
They've got like nothing in the fridge. I think even when when Rory goes over to stay at Emily and Richard, she's like she throws in like a frozen pizza, which is just like so uncommon for Emily. She's like frozen pizza, like you want to have the chef make something, like you want to make something. So they just their diet is interesting, but again there's something in Luke's coffee that clearly has them taking like five cups of coffee a day. It's unbelievable. Like I actually made a note of it while just watching the show. I'm like, there's another coffee for Rory and Lorelai. I mean, it's like a few an episode. Again, there's 21 episodes, so in total, I don't know how much coffee they actually took. But clearly Luke does something to his coffee. I mean, they obviously are attracted to that.
He also tells them in the first few episodes, like, Rory, don't drink coffee, it's bad for you. Lorelai, it's bad for the nervous system. Like he's trying not even to sell his own product. That's how much they're drinking it. He's like, you guys got to cut back. I'm a diner. We sell coffee. It's our logo, but you guys are simply having too much of it. Theo, I want to transition here to Rachel because this to me stuck out again, like Christopher, not in a good way, particularly here where we do get the breadcrumbs they asked for with Christopher. We get a little bit anyway. And then she pops up out of nowhere. I think her coming back makes a bit more sense than Christopher. She seems to be like a nomad. And her explanation is like she was at the airport. She's like, there was a flight to Connecticut leaving. I had to get on it. And it seems like she's kind of this whimsical, like go with the flow person. So it checks out with her personality. But we don't get a lot from Rachel really at all. All she is kind of in the way of this Lorelai and Luke dynamic, but we're supposed to believe like Luke is still kind of into her, but we don't get much with those two alone. What did you make of all of this?
Yeah, there's just not really any sparks here, even though we're supposed to believe it. And it's like every time we would get like a meh, like Luke and Rachel conversation, and then like 30 seconds later, we would get like a Luke Lorelai conversation that just had like way more substance.
Yes. That's what I was gonna say. There was a few moments where I was like, okay, I'm interested in Luke and Rachel. They're on the park bench or whatever it is, and then like 30 seconds later, Lorelai just completely one ups and like, oh, that's way more interesting. I want to see more of them on my screen. No disrespect than Luke and Rachel. Again, we're meant to believe that Luke and Rachel still have some sparks there, but it just kind of feels like she's in the way. Like Theo was saying, it's like she's just there. And again, this is gonna sound disrespectful, but again, it's like she's just in the way of him ultimately trying to pursue Lorelai, which is maybe not like I think she's good for him in a way, but I think she's also bad for him in a way because it's clearly not what he wants right now. I think he wants to get closer to Lorelai, but obviously you have to have this unresolved issue with Rachel coming back out of nowhere again, kind of unexplained, similar to Christopher. Did not come and warn us, hey, I'm coming back. It was just kind of like a whimsical thing, like you said. Where I'm just going to get on this flight and show up unannounced. And again, I think it was better how they built it. I think that's how I would have done the Christopher route, but it just kind of feels like she's kind of just in the way.
Well, she kind of shows that like he does have a soft side and is like capable of being a boyfriend because he like tries to do like some nice stuff for her, but then it's Lorelai like helping him do the nice stuff, and it's almost like Lorelai is like making him be the man she wants to be, but in a way that like he's doing it for Rachel.
Yeah, I was gonna say the one other point though. I think that like the reason why I prefer him also, especially over Max Medina, is it feels like in every single scene where Rory is also in the picture, like he's just a better overall like parental figure. He clearly cares about Rory. He's got like actual feelings. Where I know again it's different because you got to toe the line here. But Max is Rory's teacher first, and then again scenes outside of the classroom just feel like awkward between them. It's like, okay, so I guess you're seeing my mom, whatever. But with Luke and Rory, everything just feels so natural. Like he's like a part of her life in a way. So it just feels like it's easier than that. So that's why I'm personally rooting for Luke. But also like you mentioned, like his good side comes out with Rachel, but also comes out because of Lorelai being there as well.
Guess my issue here is more so than anything else, and it's not the actor and actress's fault. I know Scott Patterson plays Luke, and I think he's brilliant, by the way. It's not their fault. It's the writing here that I don't like. I never buy that Rachel and Luke have this connection, unlike pretty much every romantic relationship in this show. We never get like a sign of affection, even if it's subtle. Like Rachel is kind of like suggesting she wants to stay for real this time. She says it multiple times, but we just don't get enough with her and Luke to really believe this at all. She even asks for like Lorelai's endorsement, which I think like that element is pretty interesting, but we need to see more of Rachel and Luke to care
I
about
know
this.
it.
She
Yeah.
just seems like she's lingering around. We don't really get enough of her. She pops up here and there, and we get her name quite a bit, mentioning like, oh, like Luke and Rachel, all of that. But we just don't see enough of their relationship starting to spark back up.
And also, likewise, to the Christopher point, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he mentioned Rachel that much before she showed up for us to kind of be like, oh my God, this is a big reveal. I don't know if he
No,
talked
I
about her
think
that
that's
much.
intentional, though. I think that's supposed to be like he doesn't want to talk about it. That's why
Yeah.
he freaks out with the sweatshirt thing.
But in that case, like, was it something that's so big? Like, did she leave? And maybe I missed it again. Maybe did she leave because it was something that was such a big, like, shocking reason as to why she left? Because he always to me just kind of like scoffs at it. It's like, oh, that's who Rachel is. She's just gonna leave and whenever she wants. But was it like a big thing that was the reason why he was not wanting to talk about her specifically? That was kind of the reason why it was like that intentionally. But because again, while she's on screen, we're not really getting that much. So that's why I'm like, okay, was there something that big? Was there something big that happened previously that was not shown? Obviously, before we meet her, or was it just one of those things where they just don't really have the on-screen connection that we're meant to believe that they should?
There should have been a walk down memory lane that I think would have been
Right.
easy to incorporate because like she's a photographer. So if they just did like 5 minutes where she like pulled out a scrapbook and they were like
Right.
looking at old pictures and then like he saw something that like led him to remember the moment where like things went wrong. Like I feel like they pretty easily could have like made us more interested in this, but they just never really they just never had a great moment together to make any of us really like buy them as like a viable tandem, I feel like.
No, Mike. And from my notes, what I wrote down from episode 13, which is where we get the little breadcrumbs, it's basically like Miss Patty talking to Lorelai about the sweatshirt, and it's like, oh, that's Rachel's. Uh, she was a traveling girlfriend who broke Luke's heart. But we're not getting much there besides the fact that, like, she's allegedly beautiful. It's pretty shallow. We're not really going beyond that. But again, I would have loved if Luke was, like, obsessed with her beauty or something. If we could have, got that. That's why he
Yeah,
always
we
takes
didn't
her
get that.
back. She's so beautiful. They're so compatible. They have no chemistry. They have the least amount of chemistry in this entire season between a pair of people.
Yeah, of all the couples, I say they had the least amount of chemistry. I know we're not supposed to bring up sports references, but it was like one of those sports duos. It's like, okay, this is not a good fit. Like this is not. And again, it's not. I'm not saying it's Rachel's fault or Luke's fault or the actors and actresses' fault, but it didn't seem like the writing made it to where they were going to have good connection. Anyways, even if they had good on-screen presence with each other, it just didn't seem like they were that. They didn't really go overboard into saying, hey, they have really this sparked interest that goes back. They didn't really make it feel like that to us.
No, not at all. We're in the home stretch here with the last few parts of season one before we get into more of our kind of thought out analysis. Lorelai is kind of in the background freaking out about how Emily and Richard are growing closer to Rory. And, Rory is pretty much the catalyst for why Emily finally visits Stars Hollow. Richard takes her to play golf, and then they eventually share a connection about like literature and traveling and all of that. And Rory gets her own room at Emily's house. And then, eventually Rory runs away, goes to Emily
Big
and
moment.
Richard.
Yeah.
Huge moment. And we're led to believe like this relationship is really growing strong between Rory, Emily, and Richard. Almost, it feels like to me that Emily and Richard think this is the relationship they wanted with Lorelai. Theo, what are you thinking here about Emily and Richard and Rory? It's kind of this season-long thing that heats up again when Rory runs away into her new room at their house.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to talk about the scene when Rory takes her grandmother to the inn and they're walking around the grounds and she like goes to the shed and she's like, yeah, this is where we grew up. That was a super powerful scene. My big issue with like the inn kind of, this is a bigger point, but I feel like the whole scene they would show, the whole series, they would show us stuff at the inn that I felt like just didn't matter that much. I liked a couple of the characters at the inn, but then when that moment I thought like was really powerful and really hit where she like showed the shed and was like, this is where we grew up. And then Emily has this moment where she's like, Lorelai ran away from here to go live in a shed.
And I do want to jump in, Mike, before you go here. I think it is important that, and I didn't mention this and I should have, the things that Emily and then vicariously Richard know about Rory and Lorelai through their absence in their relationship is from Rory.
Yeah,
Rory's the one kind of filling in those gaps all the time. That's how like Emily knows about pretty much everything. It's not like Lorelai's coming out and telling her this. We get a few scenes of that, but it's almost always Rory.
it is almost always Rory. Yeah, if Lorelai is saying it's almost like word vomit, like she doesn't even want her mom to know necessarily everything that goes on in Rory's life. But again, Rory's a free person as well; she can do whatever she wants. But I was gonna go to Theo's point about the inn. Every time we go to the inn, I feel like maybe someone occasionally calls Lorelai at work or someone shows up unannounced. But overall, the inn scenes, I don't necessarily, they're not that important, like you said. But with Rory's scenes with her grandparents, I think they're actually important moments. I thought it was really funny, the scene where she does run away. The next morning, she gets Richard to like not look at the newspaper or something. I think she even takes a page of the newspaper from Richard, and it's like, okay, they're actually bonding here. Like this is a real. That's kind of what a grandparents and their relationship should look like. Obviously, there's just so much time in between where they weren't even in each other's lives. So I thought that was really important. Obviously, the why she runs away is kind of because her and Lorelai are having issues, obviously, with the Dean breakup and everything else. But I think overall, us seeing her with her grandparents and them kind of over the season kind of building up as like they're actually real connections now. I thought that was really nice because again, you're seeing more of the human side of even the grandparents. Like the first few episodes, it feels like they come off as like a little bit cold, like they're just wanting to get their way and they're trying to win this like internal battle with Lorelai for Rory. But then as the season goes on, it's like they're okay having their own boundaries. Like they're okay having their things with Rory, and they're totally okay with Rory and her mom obviously being the mother and daughter relationship that they have as well.
I think another interesting part here is that Richard is supposed to be this kind of intimidating force. We've got him a few times throughout the season, like talking about business, and he's this hard ass and kind of going off on some people. And he goes off on Lorelai on a few occasions as well. But if Rory's involved, he's a big softy, which I think is a good kind of character wrinkle that he has, which we don't get a ton of with everyone else. Everyone is super flawed and layered and has all this stuff. But we don't necessarily get people adapting as well as Richard does. Emily does it to an extent, but not in the same vein. And I thought that to me was just really good writing.
He's also soft in front of. We get the episode where his mom shows up, and it's like a completely different Richard. I'm like, oh, so he's just a mama's boy. Like he's just completely defaults to her on everything. It's like, yeah, I know I'm married to Emily Gilmore, but he kind of lets his mom in a way kind of walk over Emily sometimes. I'm like, Richard, step up, do something. So he is a softie in front of certain characters where Emily is adaptable in a different sense.
Tricks.
Emily was one of my like favorite characters the whole season. Like I loved her. I loved how she kind of like dominated these conversations with her snark. And then they just brought in someone that totally dominated her. And then I was like,
Yeah.
now I don't know what to think.
She wears the pants. You can tell that Richard's mom wears the pants.
Yeah, Lorelai the First, aka Tricks, amazing addition. Wish we got more of her. She
Yeah.
was awesome. She
That was
was
another
really
one-
good stuff.
That was another one similar to the Christopher episode where I was honestly bummed that she had to get on the train at the end of the episode. I was like, man, we couldn't see like an episode or two more of her because I thought that she was like the perfect to throw her into the wrinkle with Lorelai and Emily's relationship, and they have tea for all of like 15 seconds. I'm like, oh, I wanted more of that. I wanted more of those three together specifically to talk about this will that was going to go to Rory. I thought that her entrance was interesting as well. I would like to see more of it.
Yeah, and I did mention earlier Christopher was really the only one episode arc. Trix you could also add into that bucket as well. I think Trix is far less important, so that's why I didn't mention it. I think she was a good supplemental character, but that's what she is. I would expect more from Christopher, the father of Rory, but regardless, that's where we're at. We're in this final part here of the season where Lorelai suggests that the reason why Rory couldn't commit to Dean was all Lorelai's fault. All she knows is not being committed to men. So Rory has picked up on this, and now Rory is trying to see through the light and saying, I do love Dean. He is the man for me. I do want to get back together with him. So she spurns Tristan kind of definitively here for Dean, who comes to Chilton in, I believe, a Jeep. And just admits the love to him right then and there. He's about to leave. This is the cheesiest part of the season by far. He goes from being done with her to making out with her, and 0.5 seconds. It is some unbelievable stuff. It made me laugh. I did like it. I think it was a little bit camp, but I think it was valid here. I think it was valid. And then on the flip side, Max Medina and Lorelai, Mike, they can't keep their hands off of each other. They just can't
No, they can't.
stop. It is ridiculous. And finally, we get this pretty big moment. Max, Lorelai, Luke all in the doorway, and
Yeah.
Lorelai chooses Max Medina. And in a panic, Max doesn't know what to do because they start arguing about Luke and other things. And he asks Lorelai to marry him. We're doing this gimmick twice in season one. Season one. Now we have hindsight. We do know this is a 7-season show. I'm sure they knew at the time that this show was airing that it was going to at least be a few seasons. I don't know if I'd whip this trick out of my bag multiple times in 21 episodes, but the writers do. They do. They say, yep, we're doing this. She does decline. She makes a comment like, oh, I want you on a horse and with 1,000 daisies, right?
Daisies, yep, yellow daisies, yep.
Then at the end, right before the season ends, 1,000 daisies via Kirk, our guy Kirk, are delivered to and we close with the girls screaming about their relationships and how they're kind of back with their men. Lorelai choosing Max Medina, Rory getting back with Dean. Show comes to a wrap for season one. Theo, I know you have plenty of thoughts here.
Well, I gotta go back to the Dean I love you moment. Like, that was stunning, right? Like, did you guys see that coming at all? I was like, why did he just say that?
I didn't get it.
It fell out of place.
Yes, but also likewise, we didn't get the scene of them breaking up. We got the aftermath of Rory walking in the door.
Mike, did you like that?
I was kind of confused for like 2 episodes, but then again, I guess with Rory's she's ran away a few times. I think she even goes up to his door and tries to like see what's going on, and then she runs into his little sister, and then she runs away again. I'm like, okay, I don't know. I don't know if I liked it or not because I don't know enough about the characters yet, but I think it kind of fits Rory. I do.
I think that's how people act in their first relationships. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. The 35-year-olds acting the way they did, I did not like that as much.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give them as much leeway. And that's what I'm gonna say. To go back to the Max point, because you talk about the Max and Luke kind of they're kind of like sizing each other up, if you know what I mean, to keep it PG. So after that, after Luke leaves, obviously, Max and Lorelai argue. Like they go back to arguing, and then after the argument, he asks her to marry him. Like it goes from like either we have to leave each other and not talk to each other again, or we have to do something about this. And his solution is to marry Lorelai, which again, to me, I don't think they have enough scenes together to kind of warrant a proposal out of thin air. I'm kind of with Lorelai here, and then obviously the daisies come, and he didn't have the horse, but he's obviously making an effort. I just don't know if like. Again, I'm rooting for Luke here. So in a way, obviously Rachel leaves. Luke's kind of stranded there. It's finally his moment to kind of go after Lorelai now. And then Max is like, yeah, let's get married. It's just like everything's happening at once. And then on the flip side, like you say, Dean shows up in a Jeep and kind of sees Tristan there with her books. What must he be thinking with Tristan there? Obviously, he's seen him at the formal. He's seen him a few times now. Could he think that Rory's up to no good? And then obviously in like 0.5 seconds, they're back to lovey-dovey and they're back on track. So
Long makeout scene.
Yeah, like right in front of Tristan at the Jeep, and it's like, okay, that's where this is ending. And then season one ends with them both being with their lovers. As you mentioned, I kind of thought we were gonna get like a cliffhanger in the aspect of like someone got thrown in and there's a curveball now or something happened. Like I kind of thought we were gonna have the season end with Tristan and Rory having some kind of intimate scene and Dean looking at it or something. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was not what we got. And again, I'm interested to see how it goes. But as of right now, of my rooting interests, I kind of hope that Luke has a curveball up his sleeve.
Yeah, the reason I'm Team Luke, so yeah, we see Luke really cares about Rory here. Like he's throwing hands with Dean in the street. Like Max Medina is his teacher, but he seems more on the camp of like, let's get Rory out of the house so we can bang. Like I feel like that's the type of vibe I'm getting from him. And then I thought like when they got back together, like we finally got like some I thought like good dialogue from Max Medina and Lorelai, where I was like, okay, like this is trending in the right direction. And then he proposes, and I'm like, what are we doing here, people?
Big jump.
And you just feel like with all the love interest in the season, like we know it's not going to work out. Like I feel like nobody can be buying that they're going to get married. So like why even do this? Is kind of my question.
there's too many love interests going on. I mean, it's like Love Island, which I have not watched, but it's like there's too much stuff going on. Not all of it's going to end well, obviously. And like the Luke and Max thing, it's like the devil's on your shoulder, and I think that's Max. Like, let's just bang. And then it's like Luke, who there's so much more like dialogue, there's so much more like actual backbone to that.
Let's hug.
Let's hug. Let's paint my diner, which wasn't even supposed to be a diner, it's my dad's, whatever. And then obviously, like, he cares about Rory. He's fighting Dean in the streets, like you mentioned. Like, Max isn't doing that. So it's like, you got the good cop and the bad cop. Obviously, it feels like Lorelai's way more attracted physically to Max, which is why she's kind of okay with, this kind of up and down relationship, which is like, we're going to break up, we're going to call each other, we're going to propose, we're going to tell everybody in the neighborhood about us. But again, it's a little bit, it's much more different, obviously, than the Luke relationship. But I'm kind of, that's why I'm Team Luke. I think there's more substance to that one than obviously Max, which kind of feels like your typical kind of TV show love interest, where it's like kind of it looks a little bit like this.
Yeah, I just don't get enough from Max for me to buy that he's like this irresistible guy that's worth kind of like crossing this taboo line of like sleeping with your daughter's teacher. And then like it doesn't seem like they have like that much in common. Like again, like Lorelai like is Stars Hollow. Like I feel like that town is supposed to kind of like encapsulate like who she is. And like her parents are in Hartford, which is like different. And like the school's in Hartford, and you would say like Luke is also Stars Hollow. Max would be more Hartford, which is like the stuff that we're supposed to believe, like the lifestyle that like Lorelai is resentful of.
It's not like he's Jimmy Garoppolo, which again, that's the last sports reference I'll make, but it's not like he's Jimmy Garoppolo.
Mike, you're getting us in trouble here.
I know I am. I know. Just kind of had to throw that in there.
Look, he's an attractive guy, I guess, but they have no chemistry. And by the way, if you're from his perspective, I'm going to say the quiet part out loud.
Please.
We've danced around this. I have to say it.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Lorelai and Rory kind of have the same personality. So you're basically dating the attractive version of your student. Like, it's freaking weird to me. You can't make me think otherwise. I'm sorry. That's kind of how I've come at this the entire time. I actually like Max Medina as an independent person. I don't really care for his like blinders, so in love with Lorelai. And again, Theo made a amazing point, which I want to reiterate. Now, look, I can't tell you from experience if I know this to be true or not, but I would like to imagine when you are that age, when you're like 35, and if you've dated multiple people, which presumably both of them have, and Max even references like, "Hey, when we were on our break, I was getting around, man." Brilliant thing to say to a woman, by the way. But we're meant to believe that like he's had these relationships in the interim. Would you fawn over someone in this way? I feel like that's again more indicative of a teenager or a young person that maybe hasn't been in a relationship or and this is the other key part, has a kind of beginning like Dean and Rory, where maybe they met at like a library and then he sees her every week when he checks out his books and then they start talking a little bit. And then you get that fawning that way. He's fawning over her from meeting her like 2 or 3 times. And then it's like he can't resist her. She's irresistible. It's ridiculous.
This would have been better done if they like met somewhere else and then she realized that he was the teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, not a parent-teacher conference. That was kind of the big thing there. And then she even goes to break up with him, and then she's making out with him 20 seconds later in the classroom. It's just very, they're toting the line there.
And Theo, I did suggest that earlier. I don't think I said it that way, but I think there could have been like they meet at like a coffee shop. They have a scene later at a coffee shop. Maybe they meet there. Again, he's a teacher, so like a library is a good point. Like she's going to get books for Rory, and they meet at the same library. There's so many avenues they could have went down. He just acts like a big kid, which again, I understand. That's kind of the point of some of these characters. Like, oh, Max Medina, he's this teacher, supposed to have his life together, but he's also like impulsive and can't resist Lorelai. I do get that, people. I promise. I understand.
That's his character, yeah.
They beat us over the head with it. There's nothing subtle about it. But again, kind of to my Christopher complaint, it's not like anything else in the show. It's not as well thought out or well planned out as anything else in the show. So therefore, to me, it comes off in a weird way.
Yeah, I think he just thinks that Lorelai is beautiful and that she's really funny.
Yeah, like we get that. We all get that. Yeah. Everyone watching the show
kind of why,
in Stars Hollow, we get it.
I think the reason as to why he's acting like a big kid. I think he's just I think he is back in like it is like the age appropriate version of Rory in a way. Like she's 32, not 16, obviously, but he's obviously just smitten by this young because compared to other parents, obviously Lorelai is very young, compared to the other Chilton parents. Like, was why I think you mentioned earlier. It's like, why didn't you pick another Chilton parent? Lorelai is very young compared to the other
Lack
ones.
of MILFs at Chilton.
Yeah, pretty much.
But
I guess.
I
mean,
went to a private school for 2 years, like a nice one in Philadelphia, and it was a lot of like very rich dads with like beautiful wives that were like 15 years younger than them. So like if we're doing like real
checks
fancy
out.
private school, like if you're a teacher trying to date, like there's plenty of options.
Yeah, but this checks out. Okay, yeah. So this checks out as Lorelai, but there should be more Lorelais at this school.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
There should be more of those. Maybe they just weren't.
Or at least in the greater Hartford area. He's acting like he's never seen a beautiful woman before. And again, Lorelai
No.
is that gorgeous. Like, we're
Yeah,
not
she
denying
is,
that.
yeah.
She is that beautiful.
Well, here's the
But
thing.
still, like,
Maybe-
literally, but still.
Maybe he is. I mean, like you said, he did sleep around when they were breaks, but we're just getting
Yeah,
him.
so are those
I don't
fives
buy-
in his mind? He's like, oh, they weren't attractive.
I don't buy it either. I think
I think he was lying.
yeah, either he's lying or he fawns over everyone like this. Either he's doing what to Lorelai what he does to other people. I kind of think he's bullshitting as well. I think he was like, maybe he had a fling or two, but actually going out and having these interests, I think he's fawning over Lorelai because he thinks that Lorelai is different from everybody else, which is totally fine.
Yeah, everyone's mid to Max Medina, but he'll get with you. I guess that's what he's trying to portray here. That's what he's saying. Like, Lorelai is on a different plane than everyone else, which again, I kind of understand, but
Yeah.
it's a bit so over the top and so youthful. I'm like,
She's on such a
You
different tier to where you're willing to pursue your teacher's mom. So that tells you right there, like,
yeah.
if it was close and there wasn't another student in his classroom, he's still going with the more risky option here, which kind of tells you all you need to know about how he feels about Lorelai.
Yeah, if she wasn't referencing people like she referenced Howard Cosell, last sports reference here.
Yep, that's it.
A Streetcar Named Desire, a play I had to read in high school. Magnolia, which is a movie I watched on a plane with Tom Cruise, which is as bad as Lorelai suggests. And what about a Crucible reference, another high school reading I had to do? Great play. And a Menendez Brothers references in episode 1,
yeah.
which is unbelievable.
Yeah,
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
And that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. Those are just the ones I liked and wrote down. There's 500 of them.
Yeah, I forget which one that was in reference to the Menendez brothers, but I did make a mental note about that.
But guys, we are going to do the final part of this kind of retrospective here. Anything we missed before we get into some superlatives?
I don't think we missed it. I did like Lane's. I liked Lane's arc more than I mean, we didn't talk about Lane that much, but I think that the stereotypical, Asian mom, and then she wants to set Lane up with all these Asian stereotypical guys. It's just that kind of was funny. And again, I don't know, but I thought that her and Lane's conversations were very funny. They want to know every detail, even if they're so like, minute and not really that important. Lane's going over to her house to tell her things about what happened, about, I don't know. It's just, their dialogue was funny. It felt like, what you would do with your best friend when you were like 15 years old. I was like, okay, that makes sense. That's what it's small girl talk, but I thought it was fine in a show like this. I was like, that's important. You have to have a friend like that. Like Rory can't have no friends. Then that would be a little bit, but I think that her and Lane have a good dynamic.
Yeah, it was good. I feel like a lot of the shows, like you look at like a show that's based in high school, like Euphoria, where they're just like going crazy. But this is like kind of two innocent girls, like their first like foray into guys, where she's like, "Oh my god, I touched this boy's hair and had to run away." I'm much more into that than some of the stuff we get with like modern media that focuses on people in high school.
Yeah, I watched Euphoria last night, and
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. As far as other things, the inn, Theo, this is your chance here. I know you did a little kind of appetizer earlier, but we get Jackson and Suki and Michelle, and then Rune comes back. Pretty much everything at the end we glossed over quickly. I know you are the biggest inn hater, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like Suki and Michelle as characters are interesting, but at no point did I feel like anything that happened there added to any of the narratives being told with any of the main characters in the show. So at this point, I'm like, what's the payoff? I guess like they built on Suki by like having her date another guy that we also don't really care about in terms of the main arc of the characters of the show that we do care about. So that was the one thing where I was like, I honestly feel like we could have cut every scene at the inn out of this, maybe besides when Emily and Rory are walking around the grounds.
Right. Their inclusion in the inn is important. Everyone else actually at the inn, I didn't need to see that much of, truth be told. I really just didn't care about them. I mean, the one episode of Jackson and Suki actually out on a date with Lorelai, kind of just there as like a third. I guess she was there with Rune, but Suki talking to Lorelai the whole time, not even really entertaining Jackson until they got back at the diner, somewhere a little bit like less high up. And that was okay, I guess. But overall, at the actual inn, I don't really care about their characters. Like every time she walks into the kitchen and sees what Suki's baking up, I'm just like, okay, this is really important. I can kind of scroll through Twitter, and I don't have to really know what Suki is about to completely bake up here. It's not really that important. Anytime Michelle speaks in his accent that I really don't understand, I don't really have to know what he's saying. Again, he's kind of just
Not a French guy, Mike.
I like my French hoops. I don't love my French in these shows. I don't really necessarily. I mean, again, Emily in Paris is a show I kind of dabbled in a little bit. So I've done French. I've
That's where you went off that.
well, I French Paris. I just kind of got that. But no, I didn't really like Michelle's character. I'll keep it at that. Jackson, again, like Theo said, didn't really care for him. Rune certainly didn't care for. And outside of the inn, but it's something we did miss because it's not like we should have not missed it. Miss Patty, not my favorite character. I just thought that any scene with Miss Patty, I was just rolling my eyes. Again, I'll call myself a Miss Patty hater. I just didn't really care about her scenes. They didn't move me. They didn't pull at the heartstrings. They didn't really do anything for me. They would be kind of ones that I'd be like, oh, Miss Patty's on the screen. Like, okay, don't care. I'm not fast forwarding her scenes, but I'm just like, okay, she's here. I don't really have to pay attention. So again, if you're a Miss Patty fan out there, I apologize. It's not my kind of character. I'm sorry.
Do want to bring up, so there's this concept, it's derived from different mediums that I think applies to shows as well. So there's characters you're not supposed to like, which are like the villains and whatever. So we can think of a million throughout multiple different types of medias, but you're intended not to like them. That is the point. But there's also a type of character called like a go away character. When they're on the screen, it's not that you necessarily don't like them, you just don't want to see them anymore. They're so annoying. Like, it's not even necessarily intentional. It's like you don't want them in the show. To me, that's kind of Jackson. Jackson has go away heat with me. I don't want him on my screen ever. I don't find him interesting. I think his dialogue is by far the worst on the show. I think, again, I'm not calling out the actor here. I'm just saying, I think pretty much everything that involves Jackson and Suki is snoozeville. Every single thing. And I think, unfortunately, it kind of brings Suki down. I think the scenes in the kitchen, like Mike said, they're like Twitter scroll time. Like, I
Yeah.
kind of see that. But when you're world building, I don't mind some scenes being a little throwaway. And then Lorelai can kind of, throw some stuff off Suki. And sometimes that devolves into something. So I think for the most part, that isn't offensive to me. Michelle's accent, heard better, seen better, done better. Like, I don't care for him either. He's supposed to be comedic, I guess.
Maybe.
I don't get it. Maybe that's us. I don't see it necessarily.
Not comedic.
So again, as far as like the broader impact of the end, I like the concept of the end. I like what the end eventually represented. I like that Lorelai, we see her at work and how she navigates other people. Think all that's important. I like that she has a best friend. I like that she uses Suki as a soundboard. Don't care about Suki's interpersonal relationships beyond like the Gilmore clan and everyone else surrounding that. And then Michelle, we get nothing of substance of him ever, not a single thing. So I think we hit everything there with the end. Mike went to town on Patty there.
Sorry.
Babette, the neighbor, we haven't brought up a single time. She has some kind of important storyline beats, like the cinnamon passing. That's a whole episode. That's a whole thing that impacts like Lorelai and Rory.
Yeah.
So Babette, we get a little bit of house sitting. Rory has to house sit for Babette. We get this awful episode, which I think is going to come up here when we do our superlatives. And then Kirk, none of us mentioned Kirk. He is very background vanilla. He's supposed to be like the do-it-all funny guy. I will say I hate when shows do this. Kirk shows up in the first episode as like a totally different character, but we're supposed to just forget about that. They're like, oh yeah, you guys are supposed to have amnesia. Don't remember this guy who was not an important part of episode 1, but he had dialogue and yeah, just Imagine him as a totally different person later on. You guys did not see him early. He's this different, like, town jester, I guess is kind of what he's supposed to be. And then we get the town singer who just, plays the tunes now and again. And Taylor, who is like the de facto mayor and is a big old grouch. Anything we missed there, guys? Theo, anything?
Yes, I'm not a huge fan of any of like the people of Stars Hollow, but I think they do serve a purpose, and they're kind of trying to like define the difference between like Rory's life in the town of Stars Hollow versus like with all these kind of quirky, crazy people, and then like her life in Hartford at this fancy private school where everything's supposed to be like very buttoned up. We see like when she kind of goes to the parties and stuff, and then when the girls from school like come to her house when they're doing the sale and it's all disorganized, they're like, "You live here." So I do think like the people of Stars Hollow kind of help drive that narrative. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm like a huge fan of any of them.
I didn't even know his name was Kirk, truth be told. I didn't know his name was Kirk. Rune, I'm not a huge fan of. Taylor, the mayor. I mean, again, they hold a purpose because you can't have just 4 people in Stars Hollow. You have to obviously have a community of people. But again, those people, I really don't care about them personally. And then again, at the end, if Michelle has no big moments in season 1, is he going to become more interesting in season 2? I don't know. I don't know if you can sell me on him becoming a person I actually care about, or a character that I care about deeply. Suki, same thing. Jackson, same thing. Like, I know they hold a purpose. Obviously, Suki is her best friend. But again, I personally don't really care anytime they show Suki. I love Melissa McCarthy, but again, it's just the character I'm talking about here. And one other thing I think I liked, I don't know, it's not my superlative episode, but it's that when Madeline and they go to the Bengal concert. I don't know exactly which episode that is, but they go to that concert and then they leave early. I thought Lorelai kind of bodied them, and I think I even texted you guys that this is a individual performance episode I give to Lorelai, not necessarily the kids there, but that was there. Again, there's some side characters that I think hold a purpose. Obviously, these are them that hold a purpose, but not a lot of the side characters that I actually will genuinely care about. I think for other shows, again, it's not my kind of show personally. It's like it's like one of those things like with friends. Well, I'll have it on in the background and I'll enjoy it. But like with these like top shows, I think they get me to care about the side characters just as much as the main characters, and then they'll build those people up to, I'm like, okay, this side character wasn't just a side character. They had a legitimate arc here. And I'm not saying that these people won't. I just right now through one season, I don't really care about Babette or Patty or Jackson or really any of the side characters that are really right now just side characters.
Well, all the side characters that are at the school, like I like them. I think they did like a really good job, which is usually like flipped. I feel like where you're like disappointed in the casting of like the high school age kids, but the show will have like a lot of adults that you feel like you like. But this one is like, yeah, a lot of the side character adults aren't adding much, but I do like. I feel like all the ones involved with the school, like the Paris, Madeline, like that their group dynamic. Like I do
They're
like
pretty
that.
interesting.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I feel like the point is we get enough of who we're supposed to care about, and the rest is supposed to be filler. And that's intended because that's kind of what real life is. There are some people who you don't care about their arcs. There's a classic phrase we used to use all the time around here is like a school friend. Like there's people I talk to in school that as soon as the bell rings, I'd never talk to them again. And I went to college on the other side of the country that I haven't talked to in like 7 years. But when it was school and we were in a classroom or in the halls, they were like my best friend in the world. That's just kind of how it goes sometimes. So I will say, like, I don't think it's necessarily a detriment to the show. I think it's fine. I think it's just you can go both ways with it. But I will say the only thing I want to add, I do think we're supposed to care about Suki a little more than we do. I think everyone else we don't care about. That's kind of the point, and they're just supposed to be filler. I think Suki is supposed to get like a push here and be more involved, and you saw that with the introduction of Jackson and going on the double date and all that stuff. So I do expect more of her. We'll see how much more of her, but I do want to get to superlatives here a little bit rapid fire, but we'll talk about it as we go. So Mike, start us off. The best storyline of season 1.
The best storyline to me, I know most people probably say like Dean and Rory's, growth. I really I loved every Lorelai scene with her parents. I really did. I think that was the best storyline. Seeing them episode 1 to where she was like petrified to even go over to their house to even ask them this favor. And then, seeing their up and down relationship of Rory does not come home at the curfew hour. to their fallout there, to them at the hospital where Lorelai's like petrified to even go in and see how her dad's doing. I thought overall all of the stuff I've gotten with Lorelai this season. Again, we can criticize the Max stuff, but again, that's just part of Lorelai's story with all these guys that she's seeing. But I thought overall the substance here is her scenes with her parents and the stuff that we don't know from 16 years ago. I think they did a good job filling in those gaps because of what we did see on screen in season 1.
I really liked Richard's character development on this season with his relationship with Rory, where it goes from the beginning, where it feels like Emily is like having to tell him that he has to like talk to her and pay attention to her and like put down the newspaper. Um, and then like he's so pissed that he has to take her golfing. But their relationship like kind of blooms from there, and it seems like he starts to like actually become like really proud of her. Like he talks her up every time that she like other people come around. And that was always like heartwarming to me to see their relationship grow throughout the season.
You're going to sense a theme with my answers here. I am going to go vanilla. I am going to go Rory and Dean. To me, this is the best young person relationship in a TV show I think I've ever seen. The way they talk to each other, the actual dialogue, the pacing of their conversations. I think that's also important as well. Sometimes there's like you speak, awkward pause, speak, awkward pause. With them, there's awkward pauses when they're trying to formulate the next thing to say, but that's realistic. Nowadays, conversations and shows are a bit too like ironed out. The words are too perfect. Rory does feel like what she is, this book nerd. She references literature all the time with Dean, which kind of goes over his head and is a bit chaotic, but that's because she's nervous. And I think they do a great job of exuding that. Now, I understand you might not be able to cite the exact one, Mike, but best episode. Again, you might blend two together. That's okay. But what do you think was like the best episode here of season 1?
Let me think here. Best episode. I liked the formal episode. I really did. I think it was episode 9, maybe 9 or 10.
Yes.
But yeah, I liked the formal episode. I thought that we got a lot of the characters that I care about in the same room on multiple occasions. Like we had a Tristan and Dean blow up in front of Rory. We had like Paris. We got a little bit more of Paris than we thought. Like that really was a big piece in her puzzle too. It's like, oh, she showed up with her cousin, which means she really is not as like high up as we thought. I thought that she was gonna be like the main rival. I guess she still is the main rival of Rory, but it's clear that Rory has her beaten like everything. I mean, it's clearly that she's just been at the school for like 5 seconds and she's already a little bit more popular. And even like I don't know if it was the formal episode exactly or maybe a little bit after that, where even like the two other sidekick girls to Paris were even like a little bit more like hanging out with Rory. I think when they had the class assignment again, I don't know which episode that was, but they were like, let's have some fun. And then Paris was like the stuck up, like, hey, we got to get this all done. Like we got to. I'm the group leader. I'm gonna speak and do the thing. So I thought their dynamic was really cool. The formal was cool. And I think even in that episode, I think we got some cool Lorelai moments. Probably again, I'm probably blanking on them, but I think that episode was really fun. And again, there's a few others. I thought the episode, the one before the last one, where Lorelai goes on a shopping spree and gets things for Luke that are like 75,000% off, is what she said. I think. I thought that was funny too. Like we're just getting a lot of Lorelai and Luke that I like too. So that their dynamic, as well as obviously Rory navigating the teen life, I think those are some good episodes.
Yeah, I'd have to say episode 9, I would like to give a different answer, but I'm going to agree because that was the turning point for me. Before that, I was kind of going into it. I was like, oh, like I have to watch an episode of Gilmore Girls tonight because we're working on this project. We got to do this podcast. From like episode 9 on, I was like excited. I wanted to watch the episodes. Like that, I think that's kind of where it pulled me in. Like big for Rory and Dean's relationship. And then like Rory, she brings this 6'5" dreamboat to the dance, and now all of a sudden she has like more respect at school. People are like, oh, Rory, like she could get some stuff done. So it helps out some of her relationships. Yeah, I that episode is kind of the turning point for me to like actually kind of relaxing and enjoying and wanting to get through the rest of the season.
I started caring more, 100%.
Yeah, I think, again, clean sweep here. It's the easy, but it's the obvious answer. Episode 9 is brilliant television. It has everything you need. It has, like, a love situation, a love triangle. It has the dynamic between all the Gilmore Girls, Emily, Lorelai, and Rory. It has the impact of Rory having her first boyfriend with Dean. It has the moment of them, like, oversleeping and then coming back and all that
Yeah.
blow up. That's all one
It's
episode.
all in there too.
It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy to think about, but that sets us off. And I ranked the episodes if I liked them mediocre or bad. Most of my like comes past episode 9. There's a few good ones like 2 through 4 is pretty good, but it's a lot of world building. I liked the world building of it from an entertainment standpoint. Even some episodes I ranked bad, I still thought they were, like, wildly entertaining and important. I just thought perhaps it wasn't the quality of some of the other stuff that we come to expect from the show watching season 1, but you guys are 100% right. After episode 9, it feels like we kind of hit overdrive. Theo, what about the best character? This one's pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see her a lot, but I like my I'll echo something I said earlier, which was like Emily was my favorite character, I think, and then she just came and like got totally trumped and dominated by Trix. So even though we only saw her for one episode, I think she was my favorite character of this season.
Yeah, so best character and favorite character. My favorite character is Lorelai. So again, I don't know if maybe she's not the best character in the world. Of course, all of them mostly have flaws, which is I actually like TV shows that have mostly flawed characters. But I think Lorelai is my favorite. I think that she like all of her dialogue with anybody, whether it's her own daughter, her parents, her many boy interests, or Suki even the only time I've actually gravitated towards Suki is if she's having a conversation with Lorelai. So I think Lorelai is the one that's the stem of like, okay, she's interesting, so that she, by virtue of just her being there, makes everybody else interesting. So I think that would be the character I would say is my favorite right now. Like I'm getting the most out of their scenes. Obviously, I really like Rory's character as well. I really like Dean's character as well, honestly. Like I think even his scene with Lorelai, whenever Rory goes up and they're watching the movie together, I'm like, Dean's giving it back to Lorelai just like she's giving it to him. Like that scene was really good. So I like Dean, but I think my favorite character overall right now is Lorelai.
A shill, man. Best and favorite is Rory for me. I'm like the season 1 Rory put it on the poster guy. I just think both Alexis Bledel, who plays Rory, and Rory's character, everything about Rory is unbelievable here. I think it's that good. I think her character makes a lot of sense. I think her pacing, as I mentioned earlier, with her dialogue and her wit and her vernacular and always referencing literature because she's a book nerd that goes to Chilton and is top of class, all of that I think is so good. I like that she's scared of commitment because of her mom. I like that she's willing to give her grandparents a chance because that's how she was raised, giving people chances and stuff like that. I just think from a fleshed out standpoint and like pretty much how she talks to everyone and how consistent that character is, I just really like everything she brings to the table. Mike, we're gonna get negative here. This is usually where all of us thrive, where we just go off. Worst storyline. There's a few to choose from. I'm actually very excited to hear what you pick here.
Again, you can pick a few. The storyline, any in storyline, like Theo mentioned earlier, is something that I didn't need. It's just kind of like, okay, filler. I don't need it. Any Miss Patty studio where they're dancing and doing, that stuff. I didn't.
Pirouettes.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I didn't love that. I would say my worst storyline is probably, God, it came at the end of the season, but the town singer had a storyline I just could not care about at all. No, the worst one is probably Jackson and Suki to me, and then Rune's inclusion of that. Like I think even Rune needs to get a job at some point. Like he's so like not well off that Jackson needs Suki to ask Lorelai to get Rune a job. I didn't care about anything Rune related, and again, truth be told, did not care about anything Jackson and Suki related. I know they're supposed to make us care about. There probably is some Suki stands out there. I don't know. Again, I love Melissa McCarthy, but just her scenes didn't really do it for me. I think she even like once Dean and Rory break up, she like acts like the pizza lady so that she can get in and eavesdrop on the conversation of like what went wrong. So she's a funny character. I just personally I think it's the storyline I care about the least.
There was some bad like single episode stuff, like Babette's cat. I didn't really care about that, but for like a multiple
Not a cinnamon guy,
episode,
Theo?
Storyline, just single
that's
episode.
yeah. So for multiple
Yeah.
episodes, I think the Luke and Rachel thing just left so much meat on the bone. Where I just feel like it could have been done so much, like it just could have been done much better. Like I just would have liked to show more of a connection there, or at least like build Rachel up in a way that like Lorelai becomes jealous of her and feels like she needs to interject herself. Like it was just kind of, I guess the purpose it served was it like built Lorelai and Luke up because like they had a better connection than he had with another girl or another woman. But I don't know. I just feel like we spent too much time on that to kind of have no payoff because we still end the season with a potential engagement between Lorelai and Max Bedina.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. For me, again, a few to choose from. I think everything Jackson Suki is insufferable. I think everything. I can't get anything out of this. I really can't. And we'll get to our grades later. Spoiler, I liked the show quite a bit. This is one thing I was like, who signed off on this? You guys are brilliant. That you did a great job making the show. These characters are awesome. The storylines are pretty good for the most part. The dialogue is one of, if not the best I've seen. I've seen like, Sopranos and all of that. Like the dialogue here is truly next level. I've said it like 15 times. I can't say it enough. But even their dialogue, Jackson talks like an adult toddler, which I think that's the point. I don't know. It's annoying regardless. I don't care. It's go away heat. Goodbye. I am so sick of you with everything. He's actually not my worst character, which we're going to get to in a
He's
little
the
bit.
go away character. Yeah.
Like, again, I know you don't have to get the exact number. I'll help you out. But worst episode.
Ooh, worst episode. Like the one I just didn't care about at all, probably is what I'm looking at here.
Presumably.
The character where she's house sitting, I don't know exactly, again, I don't know which number it is.
Donna Reed.
Yeah,
Donna
it's
Reed
bad.
episode, yes, where they're kind of going over, like, Dean's kind of arguing, he's kind of like playing devil's advocate, and she ends up having like because again, they're neighbors, they're next door, and you have Lorelai coming out in this outfit in like this skirt, and then Lorelai comes in and she's like, what is Rory wearing? And then Dean's there, and it's awkward a little bit. Again, I know they're supposed to be awkward. That's like Rory and Dean's thing, they're supposed to be awkward, so I'm not like crushing that story, just the episode specifically. And I'm not necessarily like the episode didn't suck. I'm just saying that like it just, it was a little bit more awkward than the other ones, I guess.
Yeah, I would go episode 5 for me, which is the cat funeral. And it's another like Rory and Dean. It's similar logic. Like they were like the best part of the show, I would say. And this is another episode where they were just like, I mean, it was good for the narrative, but they were just kind of like uncomfortably awkward with each other. Like that's where I think like she ran into traffic.
Yeah.
Just like he apologized for bugging. She says she's interested, but like she runs away. So like when they're awkward and they're not really giving you a lot, like, and then like the others, that's the rising tide that lifts all boats. So when it doesn't, I think it hurts the episode. And then this is also, you get just some uncomfortable Max Medina, Lorelai, like figuring out what they're going to be. And then you just also get all that time dedicated to the cat funeral. So I would say that was the hardest episode to get through for me.
So I gave only 3 episodes red, which I think is pretty accurate. You can maybe throw 1 or 2 else in there that I gave mid. You could give the red to. You guys chose 2 of them, so I'll just say the last one for cohesion here. Episode 12, the double date, is garbage.
Yeah, it's not good.
Capital B blows.
It's not good.
It is terrible because we get Lane
Rune.
and her guy,
Lane,
who I believe his name's Todd. They stink.
he's
And
not
then
interesting at all. Yeah.
we get, this other like Rune for the first time with Jackson and Suki and Lorelai. So both dates of the double variety just stink. And then we get like Miss Kim rage bait at the end, which isn't like, she's fun when she does that, but here I don't think it works for me. That episode stinks. And those are the only 3 that I really thought were like that bad. There's some others you could argue, maybe not great, but like actually like this stinks bad. Those are the only 3 that I personally had.
That was the one where Mrs. Kim and Lorelai both showed up to the double date of their daughters. So Lorelai's and Dean's, and then Lane's and whoever the guy is that just had nothing interesting about him. I think Lane kept asking him questions about like, so do you like this? Do you like books? Do you like, what's your favorite movie? And he just, not a guy that I'd want to sit in the movie theater with for a couple hours, certainly. So yeah, he wasn't very interesting. And then again, Lorelai's double date wasn't interesting at all either. Like hers, she wasn't even really on a date. She was kind of just there. I think even halfway through, she ends up going to Luke's diner and like kind of ditching Rune in a way. And then Jackson and Suki eventually get some alone time, which probably what should happen anyways. So yeah, the whole thing didn't really work for me.
Well, luckily, worst character. I'll keep it brief. I'll start us off here, and then Theo, I want to hear yours. It's freaking Rune, man. Rune stinks. Why? Of all the surprising things this season, it wasn't Christopher unveiling the helmet. It wasn't Rachel showing up with her bags. It was Rune getting more TV time. That was the most shocking to me. How did we get this guy again?
Yeah, no, I could not believe when he like showed back up at the inn. I really thought that was a for sure one and done character.
He is the worst character. He's not my least favorite character, though. That would be, again, Miss Patty. I think I find her annoying. I find her really irrelevant. I'm sorry. I just again I hate to keep picking on Miss Patty, but just to me, I just couldn't do her scenes. I don't like her voice.
I
I don't
think
like
you might
anything.
be the only person on the planet whose least favorite character is Miss Patty, and I love it. I love how you're so
Probably.
staunch about it. You're
It,
like, I don't care what anyone
I'm
thinks.
sorry. I'm sorry. I just personally can't get into her at all. Like I hate her voice. I don't like anything about her character. But Rune is easily the worst. Like if we're just talking about like morally the best character is you picked it, Rory. The worst character here is obviously Rune. Like Rune's just not good. Nothing about Rune is like redeemable. Like there's one of those like do you see other shows where like they take a very unredeemable character and then make him redeemable? I don't know about Rune, man. He seems like he's like what's he still doing here? Like maybe he ends up being a good janitor or whatever he's doing at the end now. I don't even know what he's doing.
He does a good job with the toilets, and that comes into play. I don't know.
Maybe he's got a purpose here. I don't know what his purpose is. He's definitely the worst character.
That's we were already struggling with the inn, and they're like, we'll throw Rune in here.
That Rune. I mean, gosh,
Which is
I'm not
another
gonna make a
worst.
sports reference, but I could right now.
I know we're not supposed to like Tristan. I know that's kind of the point, but he's pretty insufferable as well.
Yeah, he's not great.
He almost does like the actor almost does a too good of a job of being insufferable. Like it's not the actor's fault. He's
No.
given the material. He's doing, I think, as well as you could with it. But again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's almost so frequent. It actually loses the point of like, oh, he actually likes her. Like it's just too much.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to come off as like the season 1 villain, so to speak. I mean, I don't necessarily think he's like a bad person. Like I think he is easily redeemable. Like to me, he reminds me of like the Jaime Lannister of Game of Thrones. Like they could easily. I don't know how his arc is going to go. But if you told me Tristan's one of the most loved characters by the end of the show, I would not be surprised because I think you could do something with his character that makes like you can actually build his backstory the way they could easily do with Paris as well. Like I think he's interesting, but right now through one season, I don't think we've gotten much interesting things from him.
Yeah, they've tried teasing like a soft side of him. I don't know. I just felt the way he was acting. I just like the Mean Girls. I felt like they're like people act similar to that. I just don't like the way he was acting. I never encountered someone in high school who like behaved the way that he behaved. So it just felt a little like far fetched to me at times.
But also had the cachet of like everyone kind of gave him the time of day.
Yeah. Like there was seemingly girls were in line for his attention.
Yeah, which I've seen variations of Tristan's, but I'm kind of with you. I don't think I've seen like a true. This is a character that they're gonna put in a TV show, and this is what Tristan is. I don't think I've met those people yet.
Mike, our last one here. This is one of my favorite things to discuss. Biggest missed opportunity from like an actual, like our perspective, if we were in the writer's room, something that they didn't flush out properly, something they didn't think about. What do you think the biggest miss of season 1 was here?
I think that. I mean, we talked on it earlier. I think we could have done the Christopher thing differently. Like I think we could have introduced him at a different time. We could have gotten some breadcrumbs up until then. And I think I personally, if I was running the show, I would have saved him for like an end of season 1 cliffhanger, and then made season 2 more about Christopher, and then had him more involved in the show. I don't know if he's a one-off character. I think we'd see him again, but that would probably be in one. And then again, I think the missed opportunity was whatever they wanted to do with Rachel's character. I think that they missed an opportunity or missed a window at least. Again, I don't know if we'll see more from her, but at the end of season 1, she just leaves. Again, she leaves because she thinks that Luke's not in it this time. But I think that overall we could have been a little bit. I think that's a little lazy. I know Luke is super into Lorelai, but I thought that they could have done before that, leading up to, they could have done more with Rachel and Luke, and I think that might have been a missed opportunity.
The last episode, I thought they ended the Rory thing like brilliantly, like 10 out of 10. The way that ended with Dean, even though it was a little over the top, like I was going crazy. I was happy about it, and I guess they wanted to end with the moment of Lorelai and Rory running, like, and seeing each other in the street. So they wanted to also give Lorelai a happy ending to the season. But I that's just not how I would have ended her arc on this season. I think I would have tried to make it somewhere where it ended where she was kind of in like a split decision between Luke and Max. I wouldn't have like tipped my hand and had her kind of go with Max. I would have left a cliffhanger where she kind of had like both options out and was kind of like ruminating about what to do. And that's how I would have gone into maybe season 2 opens with her like out with one of the two of them.
Yeah, there's an actual decision to make instead of just, it feels like it's just completely leaning one way.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And mine is also of that variety. I think we just needed to care about Max Medina more to make that decision plausible, because I think they should have done both. I think it should have been a decision exactly like you meant. If you're not going to do Christopher for that long, if he's not going to be the cliffhanger, I like the show ending in that kind of way. Like, what way will she go. But you need Max to be
Interesting.
more than the horny teacher. Like, that's all he is to me. He's like, every time he's talked about he can't keep his hands off her, all that stuff. We just need more. This guy is a teacher. He's apparently an English teacher at that. He's supposed to be good with words. He's supposed to have this massive vocabulary. We hear him say the same 10 things over and over again. So I just want a little bit more out of him, and then I can understand why Lorelai is so split. Here's this, like, kind of, perfect guy of the past that when she was a kid, she would have looked up to growing up in an area like Hartford. And then Luke is kind of the encapsulation of the modern guy from Stars Hollow that, her adult life is kind of grown into. And now it's a push and pull. Like, do I want to go back to the old me or the new me? And then maybe Christopher all of a sudden comes up season 2. Boom. Now it's a 3-way decision. Which way will I go? Now it's like, okay, we're leaning towards Max. All right. See you next season.
See you next season. Exactly. That's what it feels like. I think there should be more depth to Max Medina's character. As an English teacher, as the hotshot professor, you would think that he would have a little bit more depth. And then I think if the timelines, they could have done the Christopher timeline and shoehorned it in late season 2. And then we could have gotten 3 separate, Lorelai love interests at the same time or similar times, where it feels like really the end of season 1 just leaves off. There's no real cliffhanger, I don't think. And really just it leaves off as Lorelai and Rory are both in great places, and really Luke is the one that's really, SOL here, where Rachel leaves him, and then as Rachel leaves, Lorelai is like getting proposed to by Max Medina. So I'm like, okay, now like for me, season 2, the interesting part is, okay, well, how does Luke rebound? How's he going to get back on his feet?
Well, does Luke get a rebound? That's good. Yeah.
I don't know.
With the depth they've given, though, there's kind of like no reason to believe that like this engagement would even be like legitimate. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing we've seen that would say that like Max Medina could like walk in and be like an awesome stepdad in the next season.
No, not yet. No, certainly not yet. Long way to go.
And Luke far more fits the profile of not the stepdad, but the dad who steps up. So I feel like we're even missing that here. Last part of this, the biggest part of this, I think you tipped your hand at Theo, but final analysis. Give me a grade here. Did you like the show? Did you not like the show? What's the deal?
No, I did. I'd give it probably like an 8.2 out of 10. Like, didn't love everything, but by the end I was enjoying it. And we've had a couple days. I didn't want to like get my wires crossed watching more episodes before we recorded this, but like I think I'm gonna give season 2 a dabble. Like once this is out, like they kind of have me. I kind of need to see what happens. So got to give them credit.
I'm kind of with Theo here. I think I am going to give season 2 a dabble. I'm going to give it a 7 on the scale of, like, again, I said this in the beginning. It's not my type of show, so I'm not I think you said earlier it's like the best young person or young teenage love story of all the show. Like, I don't know. I haven't watched enough of those shows to even argue that point. Like, I actually don't know. So I'm genuinely like,
I was a big Disney Channel guy growing up. I've seen that story like 1,800 times, and this is by far the best version of that.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those Disney shows, but again, even them they're in the distant memory, like they're in the distant like past. So I don't even know if I can truly like compare them right now to like the very fresh recent, which is this right now. I think it's good. I think it's a 7 for me because, again, unlike the shows where I would rate like a 9 or a 10, those ones had me like, they had me roped in from episode 1. I think Theo mentioned like episode 9. I was like, okay, I really care now about these characters. Where like the ones they immediately suck me in, and then even the side characters, the ones that really grow. I'm not saying that these side characters can't grow, but I just can't imagine myself in season 5 being like, I love Miss Patty. She's so much better than I thought. She has way more depth. I'm peeling back the onion layers. I don't know if I can get there. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'll watch all 5. I don't know. Maybe I'll watch all these seasons. But right now, I think I'll give season 2 a try because it was a good show for something that I'm a fish out of water for this. I would never just turn this on without having us deliberate what show should we watch. And I think just seeing it on the shows of ranges of shows to watch, I would not rush to go to this. But of the shows that I would, this would be like a 7 for me.
Look, I'm not going to lie here. I like my drama. I just do. It's something I enjoy. I kind of pretend I don't, but I grew up watching Big Brother and Survivor and all this stuff, and those shows leak over, and then you grow up a little bit, and you see stuff like this, and you're like, you know what? I like this, and that's fine. I'd probably give this like a 8.4, 8.5 out of 10. I think the little stuff of this show is brilliant. I think some of the bigger picture stuff is a little more hit or miss, just a little bit. but I think for the most part, this type of show, I'm not sure you could do much better than this for this type of show, which is why I rate it so highly. Again, we nitpicked stuff throughout. There's characters we didn't like. It wasn't flawless by any means, but for what we got, for exploring the relationships between everyone's dynamics and whatnot, I thought this was about as well written as you could possibly have.
Can I have one more thing too?
Please. Yeah.
The intro is fantastic. I don't know how it took me 2 hours to mention it, but actually big fan of the intro. I think the song fits like perfectly.
What about the
You're
la
right.
la la's in between? Those get a lot of praise.
Those ones I actually like more than the intros. Maybe it's a hot take. I found myself on my walks just being like la 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 la. La. I did that more than the. I was like, this is kind of catchy. I don't know. I kind of liked that. So I thought that was a good. That was a good. I don't know if it was that actually in the intro one. I think that was more like as the scenes transition, they had the
Yeah,
la, la.
that's a transition thing.
Yeah, and I think as
The intro is a banger. I'm with you. I like both. I don't know if I'm doing the la-las yet, maybe when we watch season 2, but the intro is good, and I looked up the writer whose name's blanking me, I apologize, or the singer, excuse me, but her other stuff is, like, decent, but that's her best song in my opinion. I actually listened to, like, 3 of her other stuff. I was just curious. I'm like, "Who is this?" She only has, like, 1,000 followers on YouTube. Like, we'll pass her eventually, hopefully. But I don't think she was, like, this crazy artist of her generation. I could be wrong there. So the fact, like, they intentionally chose that, I was like, "Yeah." And the music, by the way, between the references and the actual music in the show, that's another thing that stood out. Like, I thought the music was actually pretty good. Sometimes there's songs we know, some songs we don't know, but I thought for the most part, everything kind of fit.
I agree. I thought it was good. I thought again. I like the la la la's again. Maybe I'll. I think again it was a fine intro. I don't think I was fully in camp. Oh my god, this is an amazing intro, but it was good. I personally was more of a the la 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 la. I was a fan of that. I really was.
Yeah. I mean, I was a fan of the show as it is. Any absolute final thoughts from either of you?
I'm interested to see where season 2 goes. I think again I'm still interested in what Lorelai's arc looks like. How eventually her and Max need to figure out how to actually properly attack this instead of just kind of like it being incapable of getting their hands off each other. So I'm interested to see how that goes, and I'm interested to see how Rory and Dean season 2 look, and whether they give us more backstory on the Chilton mean people, which is Paris and Tristan. I want to see more of them actually, even though I'm not really interested in Tristan yet. I want to see more of them because I hope they become interesting. But overall, I thought it was again. I thought it was a good. It was for something I would never watch. I think it's well done.
Yeah. I can't really add much more there. If you're still watching at this point, you better be. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and again, follow us on all mediums. We kind of tipped our hand here, but look, if this video does even decently well, that's all we're asking. We'll give season 2 a try. I think, this is something we think can grow into, a fixture of this channel, not just Gilmore Girls. Obviously, that's where we're starting. But beyond that, other shows of this vein, even not like, just in the general sphere beyond this genre of like heartwarming early 2000s mother-daughter shows. We'll go beyond that. Show reviews will be a big part of the Gurus going forward, especially with sports winding down and Survivor ending by the time you listen to this. So we'll have free time to be able to do more ambitious things like this. For Theo, for Mike, I am X. We are the Gurus. We appreciate you a ton, and we will see you next time. Peace.